Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelard. Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labbé. Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce. Madame le député Dublé. Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara. Monsieur le député Ayer. Monsieur le député Rob Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ghost.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Porray. Monsieur le député Wall. Madame le député Miles. Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf. Madame le député Catherine Curtis.
Présente.
Madame le député Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le député Rose Binet.
Présente.
Madame le député Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell. Monsieur le député Tom Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Alex Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le député Barbara Ward. Madame le député Wilson. Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Madame le greffier.
Prions Dieu. Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton Saint-Nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute la délibération étant accompagnée de ta bénédiction, réussisse au bien et au soulagement du peuple qui te plut de commettre à le soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite en la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car toi est le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Madame le député Labbé.
Défaut.
Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Les États sont constitués. Members will see
So-
from... Yes, Deputy Dublé.
Sorry, sir, may I ask a point of order? I think it's a point of order before we begin. I've noted, and I think you will also have noted, that there's an inequality in the standing orders whereby the male members of the Assembly are not permitted to remove their jackets. And I also note that the temperatures today are expected to reach the high 20s. And I wondered whether you would consider raising that particular standing order just to temporarily address that inequality, given the heat today, sir.
Yes. Is that proposition seconded? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on that proposition?
Only so perhaps the air conditioning could also be turned on.
Well, it has been turned on. This is the best it gets, I'm afraid to say. The building's air conditioning is poor. I'm told there's a part on its way from somewhere, but I'm not quite sure where it is or when it's due to arrive. But yes, thank you, Deputy. Male members may remove their jackets if they wish during the course of this meeting with the Assembly.
So,
Connetar
is it-
Kelia.
I wondered if this matter will be open for debate, sir.
We want to debate.
Well, yes, but I would just like to express my opposition to the move.
Oh, I did say
I
to
think if the chair can suffer the heavy robes that go with your office, I don't see why we shouldn't suffer our jackets. Thank you, sir.
Right. Does anyone wish to speak on... any other member wish to speak? Deputy Gorse and then Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Only to say I understand the temperature that we may be experiencing later in the day. It's still, as far as I can sense, relatively mild and pleasant in this place. So having this conversation at lunchtime wouldn't go amiss. But I do think, sir, that when we are speaking, it would be appropriate to wear our jackets, and perhaps you might make a nuanced decision.
Is that an amendment you're proposing?
No, sir, this is obviously a decision for you. That when not speaking, gentlemen could remove their jackets. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Deputy Robert Ward.
Thank you, sir. The only reason I'm speaking is because one of the issues we have in this Assembly is trying to attract new people into a modern, forward-thinking, forward-working, constructive Assembly, regardless of differences in political opinion and some of the discussions and debates and let's be quite frank, sir, arguments that will happen in here. I think, sir, talking about jackets is something from the past, and I think we need to look to the future. There's no reason you shouldn't be comfortable in your workplace. I certainly would have said that when I was a teacher to my students, that it's too hot, don't wear your ties, it's absolutely fine. I'd rather you be focusing on what we're doing, the content of what you're doing, the content of your work, the content of your speeches, and the overall thought that you put into the job that you do. And if taking your jacket off helps you to do that, then, sir, I would urge that that's what we do. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. And it's just, I raised the issue that my constable raised, equality of suffering is, I think, something we should go for.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak on this proposition? If no member wishes to speak, I call upon Deputy Dublé to reply.
Thank you, sir. I think common sense should prevail, and I don't know if it's in standing orders about your attire, but I think, again, common sense should prevail in terms of comfort and the heat.
Yes. Well, I don't have the relevant standing order in front of me, but as a matter of good practice, the chair shouldn't simply raise standing orders. So it's a matter for the Assembly to vote on in the usual way. So those who will wish to support the proposition will vote for. Those who are against it will vote contra, and I ask the greffier to open the voting. The proposition is that male members be permitted to remove their jackets owing to the temperature today.
Sorry, could I raise the defo on Deputy Carolyn Labby before the vote, please?
Well, the vote's begun, so I'm sorry,
Right, sorry.
it's too late.
Can I do it immediately after?
Yes, yes, you can, yes. No other member wishes to All members have cast their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. And I can announce that the members, please be of good order whilst I announce the result. The proposition has been adopted. 43 votes pour in the chamber, 7 votes contra, 2 abstentions, and about 4 votes pour in the chat from members who are not in the Assembly today.
So may we have the contra and the abstentions, please?
Yes.
Those voting contre, the connotabs of St Heliers, St Brelard and Trinity and St Saviour, Deputy Luce, Gorst and Andrews, and those abstaining, Deputies Ozef and Wilson.
So now we've got to grips with the burning issues of the day. I'm glad this was our first vote in the new Assembly. Could I raise the defo on Deputy Caroline Labby, please?
Do members agree the defo should be raised? The defo is raised. There are several items under F, appointment of ministers, committees and panels on the order paper, and the process is set out and described in the order paper. The first item is the selection of ministers, and in accordance with Standing Order 117.2e, I invite the Chief Minister Designate to read out her declaration. Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my chosen ministers for the Assembly to decide upon today will be firstly the Treasury and Resources Minister. My nomination will be for Deputy Gorst. Then Children and Education, the nomination will be Deputy Gardner. Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture is Deputy Morel. Environment, Deputy Renouf. Then External Relations and Financial Services, Deputy Ozef. Health and Social Services, Deputy Wilson. Home Affairs, Deputy Miles. Housing and Communities, Deputy War. Infrastructure, Deputy Binet, that's Deputy Tom Binet, and International Development, Deputy Labby. And finally, sir, for Social Security, Deputy Miller. I hope, sir, you'll find this a balanced and the Assembly will agree a balanced and very capable slate of ministerial appointments.
Thank you, Deputy Moore. So the first matter is the selection of Minister for Treasury and Resources. Members have received notice of the designation. Deputy Moore, would you wish to make the nomination?
Sir.
Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations for Minister for Treasury and Resources? Accordingly, I invite Deputy Gorst to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there will be a question period of up to 20 minutes. Deputy Gorst.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to the electorate in St Mary, St Juan and St Peter for the support they gave me on the 22nd of June and for returning me to this Assembly. In that election, Deputy Moore was clear that if successful, she wished to serve as Chief Minister, and she topped the poll in my district, securing more votes than anyone in this Assembly. As Chief Minister Designate, Deputy Moore has the clear support of the public and the State's Assembly and has set out her vision for the next 4 years, one that I wholeheartedly support and would be committed to deliver if the Assembly were to appoint me as Minister for Treasury and Resources. I particularly relish the call to action that the vision represents, underlined by 18 commitments for the first 100 days. I am honoured, sir, to have been nominated for the role as Minister for Treasury and Resources, where I will retain political responsibility for financial services. Today, I set out my vision for how I will seek to undertake this most important role. I am aware of the responsibility that is inherent in the role of Treasury Minister and the opportunity it provides to improve the lives of people across our community. I have twice served as an Assistant Treasury Minister, most recently during the last government to assist with COVID support packages and to take forward our work on international tax, but also when Senator Lesueur was Treasury Minister. It is a role and portfolio with which I am familiar and for which I hope to now take on full responsibility, hitting the ground running. Over the next 4 years, the Treasury and wider ministerial team will need to focus on the many challenges facing our community and concentrate on the issues that matter to islanders. These were made clear to us by the public during the election campaign. Government must shape its policies to support a strong economy, ease the pressure on family budgets in these exceptional times, and ensure our success can be shared across the community. If I am elected, one of my first actions will be to prepare and deliver an early mini-budget so that we can immediately take some measures to help islanders with the cost of living and act before the winter months arrive. This mini-budget will be lodged in the next few weeks to help islanders as quickly as possible. We will take action through the tax system to reduce the burden on islanders, especially to ensure taxpayers keep more of their own money in their own pockets. And we will support an increase to the minimum wage, above £10 an hour, moving to the living wage by the time we end this term of office. Our mini-budget will include measures agreed by the Council of Ministers, giving support for all islanders, whilst prioritising support for the most vulnerable and those on fixed incomes. The election campaign also highlighted, if we needed reminding, the need to deal with the housing crisis and to give islanders hope of a secure future in Jersey. As Treasury Minister, I will play my part in delivering for local families. As shareholder representative, representing the public, I would ensure that current and future Jersey Development Company schemes deliver more than the planned 15% of affordable homes. This may, of course, impact on current projects and might make less money available in the short term for improving other parts of our public realm, but we must be clear, sir, it is a crisis and needs to be dealt with as a crisis. The message needs to go out clearly from this Assembly, as it came through clearly to us during the election campaign. Our priority is affordable purchases for first-time buyers. We will maximise first-time buyer properties on publicly owned land to restore hope, retain the talents and skills of young islanders and keep our community diverse and vibrant. In addition, sir, as I set out in my manifesto, I will do what I can as Treasury Minister to support affordable purchases, be those through deposit schemes, shared equity or deferred payment options. And in all of these areas, building homes and helping first-time buyers, I will continue to stand firmly in support of Andium Homes. The cost of living and the housing crisis will be Treasury's #1 priority, closely followed by getting a grip on the government and state's finances. During the election campaign, the voters who I spoke to were clear in their view that state spending had increased to an unsustainable rate, driving borrowing up too high. If elected, I will work with my colleagues to address these concerns. As Minister and as a government, value for money must be our watchwords, and spending, in particular on consultants, must be restrained. State spending will be brought back under control and focused on the priorities of islanders. We will need, of course, to invest in key areas, the health service, mental health, children's services, education and skills training. We will support our public infrastructure and modernise the public estate, keeping and improving the buildings that we need and selling those that we don't, so that proper use can be made of redundant sites, in particular for housing. As Treasury Minister, I will focus on ensuring that not only is spending directed to where it is needed most, but also in ensuring that projects which spending is allocated for are actually delivered on time and not allowed to drift. Construction projects which are funded by the taxpayer need to be delivered when they are promised. And we will ensure that we have a modern government which is responsive to taxpayers and delivers value and efficiency for the public. Islanders are rightly concerned at the increase in borrowing that occurred under the last government. My position on that has been clear and is evidenced through amendments I brought to the last two government plans. We have committed, I believe, too much public debt, as Islanders told me regularly on the doorstep, and we need to return to prudence and live within our means. As Treasury Minister, I don't propose to permit further borrowing beyond any that might be required for the new hospital. And we will start to pay down our debts, beginning with those accrued during COVID, which can be fully repaid by 2026. On tax, I remain consistent in supporting low, simple and competitive taxes. I want to see the marginal rate reduced by at least 1% for all islanders as a permanent measure, putting money back in the hands of taxpayers. Treasury will, of course, need to play its role in designing schemes to fund the climate emergency response and also to help change behaviour. But I remain clear that our work in this respect must be proportional and based on public consensus. My position on GST is also clear. It should be broad, simple and low, with any necessary mitigating support for low-income households being provided through the income support system. As Minister for Financial Services, a role I will be pleased to retain, I will continue to promote the industry across our key markets, ensuring we remain competitive and open to new opportunities, working hand in hand with those that the electorate, that this Assembly, sir, will elect today or tomorrow. We will implement our new financial services strategy, working with industry and the regulator. We will continue to modernise our statute book. We will conclude Jersey's participation in the new global tax rules, ensuring they are fair and in our long-term interests. Importantly, I hope to steer us through the Moneyval assessment in 2023, which is crucial for the well-being of our economy and to protecting jobs in the island. I will work to continue to ensure Jersey is a green, digitally enabled and entrepreneurial finance centre, which can be confident of its future, providing jobs and prosperity for islanders for years to come. So I've probably outlined enough challenges and priorities to help 4 years pass very quickly. Within the Treasury Department itself, of course, we have challenges to meet in improving our service to islanders and businesses. And I will do what I can to tackle these head-on and improve our level of service. So I've been in the States since 2005. I know to expect the unexpected and that government will need to be nimble and flexible in responding to the challenges of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I'll move to a period of 20 minutes of questions. I remind members that any supplementaries must be connected to the original question. And the first question is from Deputy Southern. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. And I rise to my feet to praise the Minister for at least being honest about what he intends. And in paragraph 4 of his comments, he says, I will seek to ensure we prioritise our investment in key public services, including our health services, especially mental health, children's service and education. So far, so good. This is a generous Treasury Minister. But he then goes on, the rate at which overall spending, state spending, increased over the past 4 years is not sustainable, and we must be brought under control. We must focus and target our spending. What does this mean? The Treasury Minister, I'm sure, will quibble with my words. It means cuts cuts and more cuts to public services. We have seen this leopard before. In 2014 to 2018, he made those very cuts, and he intends to do the same again. Is that not the case, Minister?
Deputy.
No, sir.
Any supplementary?
You've taken the words out of my mouth. He obviously has access to the magic money tree and will not say where he's going to make some cuts. If he's going to reduce spending, he must admit that this comes with cuts in public services. There's no two ways about it. Will he say which cuts he shall make to which services? Will it mean extra waiting times for the hospital? Will it mean larger class sizes? What will it mean? Thank you.
So perhaps I could also answer his earlier question. He's incorrect. So I know it's good politics to suggest that previous governments were austerity governments and made cuts right, left and centre. But the Deputy knows, sir, that during the 14 to 18 government, expenditure was controlled and it grew only slightly. During the 18 to 22 government, expenditure has increased quite magnificently. And Islanders were clear to me on the doorstep that they do wish to see a government that takes back control of spending. My opening position would be that we must look at that increased expenditure that was approved by this Assembly and make sure that every penny and pound that we're spending, that we get value for money from it. We now have over 200 million extra spend that government is spending from 2018. Surely when we put all that together, £1 billion of revenue expenditure, we can allocate it to those areas that need appropriate funding, as the Deputy and I agree, sir, on health, getting down the waiting lists, on education and skills. And there is a programme in both of those departments which need to be properly funded. But we should not assume, sir, that every pound we spend is spent well and is achieving value for money. In fact, his own leader, sir, has said that they in Reform are against wasteful spending. Perhaps, sir, we can be aligned across this Assembly in being against wasteful spending and allocating the spending where the public want to see it, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Tadia.
Thanks, sir. I'm glad that the Treasury Minister is proposing Reform Jersey's policy on reducing marginal rate income tax, even if he hasn't costed it. But the question really relates to getting Jersey back on track. I noticed which was a slogan for the Better Way candidates, official and unofficial candidates in the election, and it remains one of their key pledges, get Jersey back on track. Does the Treasury Minister believe that when it comes to the new hospital project, we need to keep the new hospital project on track, or is it his intention to try and derail it?
Deputy.
Well, sir, let's not argue about whose policy it is to reduce the marginal rate. He knows that previous governments I've been in have had the policy intention to reduce marginal rates. We reduced it from 27 to 26, and we said at that time that we would support reducing it further. So perhaps it was Reform Jersey that have picked up a jolly good policy and we support it together. So it is not my intention is this. Islanders need and deserve a new hospital. But I was very clear during the election that they should be a short period so that we can once and for all put into the public domain the expected costs of a hospital at Overdale, the costs that have been spent or the monies that have been spent to date. And if we are to look at other options, then we must be open and transparent about what they cost as well, because we're looking at a cost that's now 3 years old. We know what's happened in the market with regard to inflation. If we go back to previous iterations, we're looking at costs which were 6 years old. We need to look at those costs and then find a way forward, because I think most people in the community believe that £800 million is too much to spend on a hospital, but we are where we are, and we do need to keep in focus that we need a new hospital. The Deputy, of course, knows it's not the Treasury Minister's job to decide on the hospital. It is actually the Minister for Infrastructure's job to deliver a hospital, and the Chief Minister Designate has been quite clear that she will appoint an individual to do that very review. Thank you.
Supplementary, sir. Whilst it's not the Treasury Minister's job, the Treasury Minister is in a very strong position to either help or hinder that project in coalition with his Better Way government. Now, the question I would ask the Minister, if he's talking about messages on the doorstep, is that the message to me was very clear. They said, we don't like particularly where the hospital is. We think it should have gone on the waterfront, and this is a mess that was made by the Gorse-Joseph-led government of 2014. But the hospital should go there now. We should stop wasting any more time and money, and it's much more important about what services go in the hospital rather than pursuing personal vendettas from the previous government about site selection. Does the Minister not agree that that's also a message he heard in his big district of St. Juan, St. Mary and St. Peter?
Well, so it won't surprise the Deputy to hear that actually the electors of St Mary, St Juan and St Peter weren't quite so critical as he might like to have been of the past. But putting that to one side, the electors were, the ones that I spoke to, were very much split. They really do want a new hospital, and they had story after story of the difficulties that they were encountering across the health service, and they want that to be addressed, probably as more of a priority than the new hospital. But we know that to retrain and get new staff, we do need a new hospital. I do not want to hinder the delivery of a hospital, and if it does, when we've done all of that publication of the details and the costs, if that does show that we must keep going at Overdale, I believe there are still some other things that we can do to reduce the cost of what's currently proposed. There is some redesigning. I'm not sure that you really need all of that upper floor, and I still remain unconvinced that you can't have a more practical Jersey solution to the road issue. So it's not black and white, it's not straightforward, as the Deputy wants Islanders to believe. We are going to, in this Assembly, have to make those difficult, finely balanced decisions, but we must keep focused on delivering a new hospital.
Thank you. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. When this candidate was Chief Minister in the 14 to 18 government, I spent more hours than I care to recall sat in Philip Lefevre House with constituents as they cried their eyes out, realising the reality that was about to hit them of Deputy Gorse £10 million austerity package, which cruelly targeted the most vulnerable in our society. So my question to this candidate is, does he now accept that the policies he implemented in that term were wrong, and will he assure this Assembly that as Treasury Minister he will not propose any budget that targets the poor in the way he did when he was Chief Minister?
Yes.
So, as the Deputy knows, the overall spending on income support during that period actually increased. The overall government expenditure remained flat or increased slightly, just under the level of inflation. And it was that prudence during, and the Reform Jersey might smile, sir, but it was that prudence during that period of government that meant that the incoming government was able to support islanders and support businesses through all of the difficulties of the pandemic and COVID. And we need to get back to prudence so that when we face challenges in the future, as we know we will, that we have in place reserves and sufficient funding to meet those challenges. But as the Deputy also knows, in my opening statement, I made a commitment that in the short term, the priority of the government has got to be supporting the most vulnerable as we face the cost of living difficulties and the extreme squeeze on household budgets.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Very nice answer. The fact remains that his government pursued policies which, for some of the most vulnerable in our community, their lives were made worse off. I sat in a room as people with disabilities were told they would be up to £600 a year worse off. I sat in a room with single parents to be told that they would be £2,000 a year worse off. So his words don't cut it. And the question, sir, therefore is, if this candidate won't show any contrition for his past actions, how can he expect members of this Assembly and the wider public to expect that he will govern any differently now that he is likely to be Treasury Minister? And is this not a case of a leopard that has not changed its spots?
Deputy?
Thank you, sir. I'm not quite sure how to answer that last question.
Perhaps,
with
maybe a
leopards and
short
spots,
answer,
but let
because
me-
can I just
let
say
me-
that? Can I say, Deputy? I know you're about to answer. We're halfway through the time, more than halfway through the time, and we've got 10 members who'd like to ask questions. So perhaps members can keep their questions reasonably short. And again, if you keep your answers short.
Thank you, sir. I'll endeavour to answer questions quickly. This is a new government. The Chief Minister Designate has set out her vision, and I clearly wanted to and do fully support that vision, and I will use the Office of Treasury Minister to work for the priorities of the government, not simply what my own view on any given issue might be.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. With the move to independent taxation drawing near, will the Minister-designate commit to a compensatory allowance for married couples? And if that is the case, how long does he intend it to last? Thanks very much, sir.
So I have always been in favour of that. I don't have all the details in front of me, so it is something that I would wish to review and get other ministers' views on an appropriate way forward. Thank you.
Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his speech. It's absolutely right that we move ahead quickly with the minimum wage to the living wage, and further if necessary. But the Deputy will know, sir, that there's one particular industry in Jersey which really struggles with this. Can he give the Assembly some assurance that he will find a way of supporting farmers, and particularly vegetable producers, so that their businesses continue to be viable into the future when we get to the living wage?
Deputy.
The short answer, sir, is yes, but the reality of the situation facing our agricultural industry, and no doubt Deputy Morell will talk about this more fully, is not straightforward. In previous crises, we might simply have thought of a short-term support to deal with the cost of fertiliser. But as the Deputy himself knows, sir, there are many interlinked and difficult supply chain issues and changes for the agricultural economy, not just here in Jersey, but right across Europe, some of that arising out of the war in Ukraine. So I, together with Deputy Morell, stand ready to support farmers in what is going to be a very difficult and challenging period for them.
Thank you. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister-designate, will he rule out an increase in GST during his tenure? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy.
I listened carefully to what the Chief Minister-designate said when she answered this question. I will work collectively and collegiately with the ministers that this Assembly elects today, but I was clear in my opening statement that I will give a jolly, jolly good fight to ensure that it doesn't, and that is my personal position.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Can I just ask, is that a no?
So, one is elected by this Assembly into a council of ministers. One may have one's own political philosophy, which is to answer the Deputy a no, but it may be that other ministers feel that that is the only option to them in the future. And I'm quite clear. My philosophy is no, and I will fight and fight to ensure that GST doesn't rise.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. In his statement, the Deputy proposes to increase the tax thresholds and work towards reducing the marginal rate of tax by 1%. Has the candidate costed this, and how does the candidate intend to balance any budget deficit created by the decreases he is proposing?
Thank you. Deputy.
So I have to be careful what I say here, because of course all potential candidates for any ministerial role can go into the department and speak with officials and seek to understand what the implications are. But the Deputy will not be surprised. It is rather counterintuitive, however, that during a time of inflation, the revenues that the tax department are receiving into their coffers increase. And there is something which is unintended there. So you see an increase in revenue and tax take because of rising inflation at the very time when islanders themselves are suffering in their own pocket. And I believe that if not all, then certainly the majority of measures that ministers may want to see in a mini-budget would be covered by that increase in tax take that the Revenue Department is also already experiencing.
Yes.
If there was to be a deficit in tax intake, how would you balance that? What would you do in order to balance the books, and would that include departmental budget cuts?
So as the Deputy knows, if one is facing a deficit, one has to look to the economics and not just the calculator. And the economics always tell us that if we are facing a deficit, then we should seek to address it over the medium-term period, anywhere between 3 to 5 years. Members will be having a briefing by the Independent Fiscal Policy Panel, I think, later this week. They will be advising members what their view is of the latest economic outlook for the medium term. But I would seek to deal with any proposed deficit, if that is indeed the case. I don't see why it should be. In fact, I think it will be the reverse, along the lines of the advice from those independent economic advisors.
Thank you. Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. My question to the Deputy is in relation to personal income tax and the transition from previous year basis to current year basis. Will the Deputy, as Treasury Minister, commit to providing clear communication, sir, in relation to repayment options for individuals' 2019 tax liability?
Deputy.
I will, sir, and I understand the difficulty that some islanders have had in receiving the communications that they have from the Revenue Department. Some individuals very close to me have been confused when they themselves have read that communication. Me being tight, always take the what I think is in my best interest payment option. And there are some really good payment options for islanders, and they really don't need to be concerned. And if they are concerned, there are two things that I hope will happen. One is the communication that the Deputy has just outlined, but two, I am absolutely committed to getting individuals sitting at tables in Philip Lefevre House, in person, to address islanders' concerns, because there are quite a lot of concerns that need to be addressed when it comes to communicating tax changes.
Deputy Jern.
Thank you, sir. The Public Finance Law of 2019 requires the Council of Ministers to take into account the sustainable well-being of current and future generations when developing the government plan. But Jersey dropped 5 places in the OECD Better Life Index in 2021, reflecting maybe a lack of correlation between words and strong action. How will the Deputy embed the sustainable well-being principles into decision-making when deciding how to spend Jersey's finances, and how will the Deputy monitor the impact of these decisions?
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. As the Deputy knows, it was incorporated into the Public Finances Law, and that was the first step to think about well-being. I think she's also right, sir, to indicate that whilst it's in the law, there isn't good practice yet across departments thinking about it. That will be a job not exactly for the Treasury Minister, but for the Chief Minister and for the Council of Ministers. Perhaps I was trying to allude to it when I used the term value for money. because value for money is not just about the finances, it's about the deliverables of how we are spending the money. And I am absolutely committed to making sure that we are delivering value for money, and that includes islanders' well-being. It can't not.
The period for taking questions has completed, and as there were no other nominations, I can confirm Deputy Gores has been selected for appointment as Minister for Treasury and Resources. I'll move on to Minister for Children and Education. I invite Deputy Moore to make her nomination. Deputy Moore.
So I'm delighted to propose Deputy Gardner for this position.
Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there... Southern, you seconding too? Too early, all right. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Today I stand before the Assembly and asking for members' faith and trust in me to carry out the role of the Minister for Children and Education. I'm really emotional, actually, for the next 4 years. I would like to thank for Chief Minister Designate to nominating me, as she knows that I will be a very strong voice for children, teaching professionals, carers and families. I will not let it go until we have an education and children's services that promote educational excellence, economic growth and individual well-being. It's vital all children have a fair opportunity to attain the necessary skills and knowledge to prepare them for the uncertain future. None of us really know the trends in globalization and artificial intelligence and world economics which will affect our future working lives. It is extremely important that we will maintain and enhance good standard of learning and education to secure our future. A well-rounded education makes positive difference to the lives of children, young people, their families, carers, and our community as a whole. Their future, it's our collective future. Our community is stronger when educated and mobile. Children and young people experience major challenges, as did all our community during the pandemic. The impacts the pandemic has on children and young people's education, social, emotional well-being, physical and mental health, and economic securities are recognized, and we must provide support to ensure educational recovery and well-being recovery for all children after pandemic. When I looked into the whole portfolio of the children and education, and I think, what are the issues, major issues due to address during this term, I realized there are many. And I raised some, but probably there are more. So we have on our hands, first, education reform that must progress, early years, and ensuring recommendations of care inquiry are not forgotten. Implementation of inclusion review recommendations just been recently published. School funding and school infrastructure, we had lots of communication about it and it needs to be dealt with. Social care reform, higher education funding, provision for children with special needs, vocational provision, skills agenda, mental health and well-being, on safety online, at schools and on the way to schools, support for our teaching professionals and youth services, develop digital and educational strategy, all this to consider how we join them together. The most important thing is really to join things together and provide a well-balanced and holistic approach to the needs of our community. I have had meetings with Senator Valois and with Deputy Wickenden, and I'm grateful for their time in sharing with me their knowledge and their experience. I've learned from both of them. I'm also grateful for the Director General for Children, Young People, Education and Skills Department for very constructive meeting and answering my question about challenges we all are facing. It's the big job, and as with any big job, we must prioritize. And I try to put together what will be my first 100 days plan, follow the 100 days plan from our designated Chief Minister designate. And I divided, people know that, members know that I like structure, so I divided into the 5 main priorities in strategic level and 5 operational things for the first 100 days. Obviously, another things will come to my attention. I would need to adjust because it's always dynamic, as we know. In no specific orders, I think that, but for me, recruitment is one of the top priorities within the Children and Education Department. I would like to develop a holistic workforce strategy and action plan for the department, which will provide us with a workforce analysis and projection of future need based on workforce demographic, turnover, and recruitment plans. Plans are extremely important for me. My first meetings will be with head teachers, children commissioner, unions, early age partnership board, parent care forum, and other partners. I recognize this is the challenge across the government, departments and businesses. We must have stable and high moral workforce to deliver the best of our children. And this leads me to the next strategic priority, which is skills. And I'm grateful that Treasury Minister in his speech elaborated that we would need to invest into skills. So the first 100 days, I'm aiming to complete plans and establish delivery timelines for the reorganization of skills jersey functions across the SIPes and Government of Jersey, because skills is coming under my portfolio. This will support Chief Minister-designate commitment to create a People and Skills Commission, which will monitor the population, availability of accommodation, skills gaps, and employment opportunities. These plans will introduce a barometer, really, for how we will work. Third, and it's one, as somebody who's been present at the Assembly, we know that we are coming towards the government plan, which is the budget. And very swiftly, I need to understand and to put forward with these plans, with the Treasury Minister, and I'm again grateful that it was indicated will be support for education, but we need funding for early years, care sufficiency, the outcomes of education reform program, and inclusion review. There are big pieces and investment in education coming, and I would fight for them. Develop another strategic priority, develop and start implementation of participation and engagement plan for children and young people. This will ensure that the voice of our service users will be heard and will be in the heart of developing the policies. And matter of urgency, on the strategic level, develop a community partnership group involving SIPes, health community services, housing, State of Jersey Police, Youth Service, Custom and Local Services, parishes, and honorary police. It would be a focused approach with partners to address some of the antisocial behaviors issues we are facing and missing children activity. Now, if I'm going to the operational matter, we must act on previous State Assembly decisions. We had some decisions that were not acted on. Also, recommendations from the Public Accounts Committee, Controller and Auditor General, and the Scrutiny panels. One of them is maintenance of the estate. We now have summer holidays, and this is the best time to fix and prepare schools for the next year. As a matter of urgency, we must address all fire safety risks within the schools. Also, we need to sort out the kind of building heating issues and green fields improvement plan and others. I know it's all not the same, but we are talking about the first urgent matters with the first days. Finalize implementation plan for CAMS, mental health and well-being. We raised it with the KC, and I would like also to see how it's going forward. Finalize the St. Helier Primary School Estate Report to be presented to the Assembly. Finalize the Higher Education Review Report to be presented to the Assembly. Ensuring funding and funding formula, whatever it is now, be presented. And I assume that I would need to work on it a bit more, but at least whatever we've done will be shared in the Assembly in the future. So, what is really important, we are all connected to education. We all have personal views, and I ask members to connect, to contribute, to express, to develop the dialogue. This is important. I already considered thought into building an effective team, and if elected, I would like to work together with Deputy Dubley and Constable of St. Peter and embrace other skills which other junior ministers might be willing to contribute. We must work together to make our island the best possible place for our children and young people to study, play, grow, and create their future. I want to bring a renewed passion and leadership to our current Department for Children, Young People, Education and Skill. I will seek help to meet all challenges and current needs of our community, and thank you for your questions in advance.
Thank you, Deputy. We now move to a period of 20 minutes of questions, and the first question is from Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. The potential minister says that she's passionate about education, which is nothing more than a cliche. She then goes on to say, good standards of education make a positive difference to the lives of children, young people and their families. What single action will she take to ensure that good standards are maintained and introduced in our schools as a priority?
Deputy.
Thank you for Deputy Southern for his question, because I am passionate and I worked a lot during the previous term with schools in my district and I made improvements. I think about the actions. There are several things that we must address, and the first thing is to ensure that we have sufficient funding for the education, which will allow head teachers in the school to make the difference and to lead the school the way what they think is right. Obviously oversight from the department.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. But the question was about actions and was not, if you don't mind me saying so, was not answered. What actions will she take to ensure that these good standards are maintained and promoted in her service?
Deputy.
I would refer, Deputy, to my action plan that I just outlined in my speech. I have 5 strategic and 5 operational priorities for the first 100 days, and I'm welcoming Deputy to hold me to account after 100 days. It's all on the Hansard if I manage to deliver what I promised in my speech.
Thank you. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. And following on from that, the candidate for minister has referred to funding of schools. So can we take it, therefore, as a given that she has a categoric assurance from the Treasury Minister designate that she will be getting that funding?
Thank you for Deputy to the question, and I think it's a really important question. The moment that I decided to stand for this position and ask for this position, we did have a discussion with the Chief Minister designate, and as Treasury Minister indicated, he also aligned with the vision of Chief Minister designate. So my hope and my trust at this point that I would get funding that I need. I assume, and this is important really to indicate, I wasn't party to the current funding formula. I need to see what is current funding formula. I would suggest that for the government plan of 2023, the government plan that we will debate, we will follow the funding formula that was specialized, but I will personally would look if all special needs are met, and we might have different updated funding formula by September 23.
Supplementary, please, sir. There was quite a lot of equivocating in that answer. It is a very clear question which could be answered yes or no, and without a yes we can only assume it's a no. So I guess I've kind of got to reiterate the question, which is, has she had that very clear categorical assurance from the Treasury Minister designate that she will receive every penny of the funding that she needs to implement the admirable vision for education that she's outlined in her speech, which I'm sure every member of this Assembly would want to get behind, but will want to know that it's got the funding? So yes or no, has the Treasury Minister designate given her the categorical assurance that he will be signing over the money to her to make it happen?
Thank you.
I have assurance that it will be investment in education. We never spoke about the sums.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I congratulate the Minister-designate, and may I ask the question, what is her opinion on the 14-plus transfer system? Thank you.
Deputy.
Thank you, Deputy, for his question. It's something that was brought to the attention in the funding review, and we must open the consultation. I think it's something that I would need to address during my term. I would like to have meeting with the head teachers. I would like to have understanding from the parents. And I would probably likely to go to the wider consultation, because plus 14, it's something that was here for 60 years at least, I would say, or 40 years, or maybe more. I wasn't on the island when it was introduced. I realized this is part of Jersey culture that I respect. At the same time, I know the difficulties that it's bring, and I can reassure the Assembly I will work on it. We'll make a research, and I will bring to the Council of Ministers and to the Assembly options around 14-plus education.
Supplementary. Thanks, sir. Given that the cost from the independent funding review of the 14-plus transfer system is £781,000 per year, does the Minister-designate not believe that this is money better spent elsewhere in funding education in other state schools?
Deputy.
I think it's really a good point, that this is the reason that will be part of the review. We need to really see the provision between Highlands and Holler, because we're talking about mainly Holler, and how it can be spread around the whole island, all other secondary school. So it's a big piece of work needs to be done, and it's connecting research, it's connecting funding, and it's connecting people and their feelings around 14-plus education. So I cannot commit what I'm going to do with 14-plus education without making clear research and learning around it.
Thank you. Deputy Hegarau.
Thank you, sir. What is the Deputy's preferred site for a new school for St Helier?
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you for Deputy Haggerad for her question. I think that, as members know, I was the person who brought the proposition, because I thought that the Rouge Bouillon site needs to be redeveloped to school. Another point, as all Assembly here, I mean, the people who were in the Assembly in the Bridging Island plan, it was state's decision about developing Gas Play site to another primary school. And I think we still will be missing another primary school in St Helier. Basically, what I'm going to do, I can review. I need to see, because none of us seen the review, none of us seen the report. I requested this report several times in this Assembly. The moment that I will be presented in the report, I look through the report, I reassure the Assembly that I'm presenting this. I would say, give me time till September to look what's, and it will be our open debate, and we as Assembly can decide the way forward based on the evidence that will be presented.
Thank you. Conrad St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. And Deputy Southern is quite right. We hear many cliches in this Assembly. However, I really feel that the Deputy has spoken with enthusiasm and passion this morning, and she has done that in every time she's spoken about education and young people, to be honest. But she's given us a very long list of jobs that she has got to deal with, a very, very long list. Whether they're all achievable or not, we can only hope that they are. She's also given us a commitment to meeting with third parties to enable them to work with her to deliver on fulfilling those jobs that she's identified to us. I believe her passion and commitment is far more than we've had from previous education ministers. And regrettably, the former minister chose to not respond to my 4 or 5 emails requesting a meeting with him to discuss a very concerning matter about the withdrawal of funding.
You're going to come to a question?
I am going to come to my question, sir. In fact, I'm there now. And my question, sir, is to the Deputy. What commitment will she give to members of this Assembly that she will make time for them to meet with them and address their concerns when she has such a long list of jobs to do and she's already committed to meeting third parties? Will she answer emails and arrange meetings, sir?
Thank you. Deputy.
Thank you for Councillor St Lawrence for her kind words and question. I commit to respond to emails, maybe not within 24 hours, maybe it will take me 48 hours. My previous record, 3 years of the Assembly, show that I do meet, I find time for people, and I find for stakeholders, and I will definitely find time for members and other parties, because what I believe in, I don't have all knowledge. I don't know what's happening on the ground. I physically is not able to know what's happening on the ground. And the only way to find the better way, it will never be perfect. Like, nobody can make perfect decisions, but at least I can reassure the Constable and the Assembly that I would do my best to listen to all parties and to find the compromise way forward, because this is where here I'm for, to listen, to understand, and to make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
No follow-up, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Sadia.
Thank you, sir. Following on about the selective education system we have in Jersey, could the candidate remind us of how Jersey fares in terms of its fee-paying versus non-fee-paying split? And more generally, can she state whether she thinks the balance is right in Jersey about that split between fee-paying schools and non-fee-paying schools?
Yes, Deputy.
Thank you, Deputy, for the question. And first of all, I need to declare that my daughter is in fee-paying school, that it will not be any rumors, and she was in this school before I first been elected as a deputy. In terms of the current arrangements for the fee-paying schools, I recognize this is extremely sensitive area, and this is why we need to have a discussion with all stakeholders about the education law. Because at the end of the day, our education law is 20+ years old, and I want to have a proper conversation, a proper dialogue about how education will play over for the next 20 years going into the future. I know also that the funding review raised an option about means-tested pays, and again, it's something that needs to be discussed on much wider public engagement.
So I was hoping the candidate might provide a bit more detail. As I understand, having previously served on the Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny panel, the split in Jersey, obviously it varies from primary to secondary, but there's about 42% of students are in fee-paying schools, versus perhaps the UK, France, Europe, which is less than 10%. Given that it's quite a basic and I'd thought fundamental philosophy that any candidate for Education Minister would have thought about, can she tell us what her feelings are about the Jersey split? And should we have more fee paying? Should we have less fee paying? Is it divisive? Is it okay as it is? Is it something we need to tweak? What's her vision with regarding fee paying versus non-fee paying and the effect it has on the overall education system?
I wasn't on the Home Affairs and Education Scrutiny panel, but I think that memorizing all statistics, important that I'll have statistics, but as a minister, it's I will need to have a team who will help me with the statistics. So I'm not sure about statistics. They might be wrong, might be right, might be wrong. I don't know about the numbers. What's really important to tell for me, to tell to the Assembly, it's the discussion needs to be held with wider public. Saying this, it will take more time to rearrange FIPE in school. For me, my priority in the first year, at least, or two, once we are having these discussions, to ensure that non-fee paying schools received funding, receive resources, and teachers receive enough training and create the curriculum that actually will be maybe even better, because it feels like the non-fee in schools are not that good. And this is the reason people go into the fee-paying schools. But I can reassure you, if you look at La Canave, which is non-fee paying school, and curriculum there, from what I know, is outstanding, and the children pretty happy to stay there through all their education. So what we must really concentrate, how we are bringing investment in the non-fee paying school to support them and to allow the same level of education that in the fee-paying school. So it will be completely identical.
Thank you. Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. The Inclusive Education Review recommends the government to define inclusive education. How would the Deputy define inclusive education?
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you for the question, because this it's not really defining education. It's saying the inclusive education needs to be defined, and this is my task and task of this Assembly to finalize this definition.
Thank you.
Supplementary would be if you could, the Deputy could maybe set out a few pointers to say where she thinks inclusive education would be, her priorities.
Deputy.
For me, it's very simple. Every child gets whatever child needs. And there are so many needs and there are so many children, and we need to look individually and to create services, support tools to support individual child, that the child will have an opportunity to get to the best of his, her ability.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Would the candidate be able to articulate in terms of the low level of education expenditure as it currently stands, and how during this term education expenditure can actually be increased?
Thank you for Deputy for his question, and he's completely right. Current funding for non-fee paying schools in Jersey is much lower, below than high-performing jurisdictions. With the funding, children on Jersey, actually, the children in Jersey, even with low funding, achieving better. Their achievements are better than children in, for example, in the UK. It is a significant gap, and as I mentioned previously when I was answering previous questions, we will work to increase the funding and bring funding to the necessary level.
Thank you. Supplementary? No. Conotaba Trinity.
Thank you, sir. If I could first congratulate the Deputy. And my question is that does she believe that education should be a statutory consultee to the planning process? We are all expecting a lot of new accommodation to be coming down the track very soon, and we need to ensure that the government's aim of making safer walking and cycling routes to school important, so that parents aren't travelling around the island delivering their children to school for their education. Would she agree with me that that's something important that needs to be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you for Conotab, and I completely agree. And if remember, I brought the amendment to the Bridging Island plan to ensure that infrastructure planning applications will ensure that the educational needs of the areas will be met. I think it's absolutely necessary.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. A couple of years ago, I had to sit in a room with teaching unions and civil service unions. And in order to fund decent pay increases for our school staff, we were made to look for budget cuts in school and reduce school budgets. I believe that the process was called gain sharing. Can I get the assurance from the Deputy that she will not use gain sharing or cut school budgets in order to provide cost of living and decent pay increases for the staff in her department?
Deputy.
Thank you, Deputy, for her questions. I think that as an education minister, it's important for me to ensure that education is sufficiently funded. I will put, personally, I think that we must work together, and I will put extra pressure to the Treasury Minister, Chief Minister, and State's Employment Board to recognize the hard work of the education. And I will meet with union, and I'll work with them collaboratively if they approach me. I responded to unions. We have an email exchange, because I cannot see that we can progress without proper funding. Cost of living, as Deputy would understand, it just go across the whole Council of Ministers, and we need to address housing and other issues for the teachers.
Thank you, Deputy. Supplementary?
Yes, please. Can I get the Deputy's assurance that she will not support cuts to schools' budgets, and that also she will implement the findings of the school funding review?
Yes, I can ensure. Sorry, I didn't switch on microphone. Yes, I can ensure. Deputy.
Deputy Mezek, you might get one question in.
Okay, well, I'll try and be very quick then. The question is, what tangible action will she take to address any of the outstanding recommendations from the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry?
Deputy.
Can I ask?
Yes, you can answer. Yes.
Very quickly, I think the Chief Minister designated indicated about public ombudsman, and this is one of the first things that needs to be introduced.
Thank you. That brings the time for questions to an end, and I can confirm Deputy Gardner has been selected for appointment as Minister for Children and Education. We now move on to the Assembly appointing a Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Deputy Moore, would you like to make your nomination?
Thank you, sir. And Deputy Morel is my nominated candidate for this role.
Thank you. Is the nomination seconded? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Deputy Morel.
Thank you, sir. Sir, it's an incredible honour and privilege to stand in this Assembly to put forward my case for being elected Minister for Economic Development. I'm humbled by the faith shown in me by the Chief Minister designate, putting me forward for this role. And sir, if appointed, I can assure every member of this Assembly that I will be tireless in trying to create the optimal conditions. Realising the microphone's off. The optimal conditions that will enable Jersey's vibrant economy to soar, reaching new heights that in turn will enable us all to prosper and thrive. If appointed, I will be in a fortunate position to have been handed over a strong department, in good order, thanks to the efforts of Deputy Farnham. From the team in the Ministerial Support Unit to the officers in the department itself, the Department for the Economy is staffed by talented people who want Jersey to succeed economically. They understand that it is through the hard work of islanders in our economy that we are able to provide the public services from which all of us benefit. Sir, for those of us born since the first seeds of Jersey's world-leading financial services sector were sown, it is perhaps too easy for us to take for granted the overall level of wealth that has been created in Jersey, and the incredibly high standard of living that this has generated, both of which are far higher than one could ordinarily expect for a tiny island on the edge of Europe. Sir, I use the word overall to describe the high level of wealth and quality of life in Jersey purposefully. Whilst these are true descriptions of the results of our economic performance over the decades, there is no doubt in my mind, or I believe in the minds of my fellow states members, that these measures of economic performance hide a reality, which is that increasing numbers of hard-working islanders are struggling to make ends meet, and as a result are questioning whether Jersey is the best place for them to live and work. The reasons for this situation are many and varied, but there is one baseline cause that can be summed up quite simply. Jersey is pricing itself out of the market. The cost of living is rising so steeply, driven initially by the homegrown problem of the lack of accommodation, and now added to by massive global geopolitical events, that some islanders sadly now see their futures elsewhere. Sir, stopping this unwanted trend will be the overarching priority for me, should I gain this role. As Economic Development Minister, I will strive to create a sustainable economic environment which enables all islanders to see their futures in Jersey. And I will do so by helping them unleash the formidable power of Jersey's entrepreneurial spirit. Children and young people must be able to see their futures here. Not only do they need to believe that they'll be able to live and afford to live in their own comfortable homes in adulthood, but they also need outlets for their diverse skills, abilities and interests. They rightly want and need an island in which they can realise their incredible potential. And so I will continue the work that I have begun with the delivery of the Heritage Strategy, the Culture and Arts Strategy, the Marine and Rural Economy Strategies. And I will finish the work that's already started on the Tourism Strategy, all aimed at supporting, growing and diversifying our economy, and in so doing, creating a wide range of exciting careers that will help young islanders believe that Jersey is the place in which they can live fulfilling and prosperous lives. Sir, Jersey's economic success has always been founded upon our entrepreneurial spirit. We are enterprising because a small island community must constantly innovate to succeed. Our financial services industry is an incredible example of just how effective we can be when we keep our minds open to new possibilities. As Economic Development Minister, I will work with the Chief Minister and my fellow ministers to ensure we create the social, environmental and economic conditions needed to enable islanders to have the means, skills, confidence and resilience that will allow them to identify opportunities and innovate solutions that not only meet the needs of our own community, but which can also be exported, selling to clients and customers around the world. Sir, it is hard to express the immense pride that I feel when I think about our island's businesses and social enterprises. From world-leading financial services to a tourism destination that cannot fail to impress. From innovative cooperatives that encourage the growth of a sustainable circular economy to digital tools that transform the world of recruitment or challenge the culture of private car ownership. From artisan glass blowers, wood and iron workers to premium quality dairy, potato and shellfish exporters. From actors, musicians, singers and artists to lawyers, accountants and fund administrators, there are so many examples of incredible individuals and organisations in Jersey that have transformed ideas into reality and through hard work have grown them into successful enterprises. I want to support and build upon the outstanding level of enterprise that we have here, and in so doing help us address the enormous challenges of carbon neutrality and a growing and ageing population. As Economic Development Minister, I will work to ensure that our economic environment encourages sustainable enterprise. I will do so in the collaborative way that I have demonstrated as an Assistant Minister, listening to and working with stakeholder organisations, including arm's-length organisations and the private sector, to make sure the government is investing in the right areas and doing all it can to make it easy to work and do business in Jersey, whilst providing the necessary safeguards that we all need to help our economy thrive. Sir, I've spoken of my desire to work in pursuit of a truly sustainable economy, and it's important that I explain my understanding of that term. A sustainable economy is one that balances our economic needs with our social needs and environmental resources. It is an economy that is long-lasting, precisely because it grows in step with the ability of the island to maintain it, without plundering our social and environmental capital. Unfortunately, sir, today our economy isn't on a sustainable path. Weakening productivity means that we're having to grow the population in order to maintain our economic performance. That, of course, pushes up the price of accommodation for both people and organisations. High commercial rents are a strong inhibitor of enterprise, and so I will work with the planning and infrastructure ministers to make more economic land available, particularly around the Collet, but also on a smaller scale in state-owned properties like the markets or Fort Regent, creating incubator workspaces that give entrepreneurs the opportunity to start businesses without the fear of creating large debts should their ideas fail. In the rural economy, where land availability is decreasing, I will explore the possibility of a sustainable land trust, that can help the farmers and smallholders that I am committed to supporting work the land they need to improve our food security, whilst constantly improving their environmental performance. To address the cost of living, I will encourage the JCRA to ensure markets are operating efficiently and will work with the External Relations Minister to improve resilience, drive down costs and find new markets by opening up trade with France and Europe. Sir, the need to decouple population growth from economic growth means that as Economic Development Minister, I will need a laser-sharp focus on increasing productivity. We will need to build on the Productivity Support Scheme, working with Jersey Business, Digital Jersey and the Technology Accelerator Fund to encourage organisations to invest in or innovate technologies that create growth without the need for more people. Across all sectors, Jersey's enterprises need to be fully technologically enabled because this is the only way we will be able to achieve an economy less reliant on population growth. Productivity improvements will also require a commitment to reviewing the impact of regulation and bureaucracy. When interacting with government, the experience should be speedy and easy. This includes providing tenders for the supply of goods to government. Too often, government processes are a burden on organisations, and I will work with the Chief Minister and other ministers to rectify this. I also believe government can play a leading role in encouraging local businesses by procuring as many goods and services as possible through the island's economy, whilst of course ensuring that good value is received. The fruits of this work to boost productivity will be seen in the medium term. In the short term, however, we will need to help organisations find the people they need today. This will mean working with the Home Affairs Minister, the External Relations Minister, and HAWAG or its successor to modify the work permit system so we can more easily attract the people we need. With an eye on the longer term, we have to develop a system that funds lifelong learning, so islanders are able to gain the skills they require to remain economically active throughout the different stages of their lives. As Economic Development Minister, I will work with the Education Minister and organisations such as Skills Jersey and Highlands to develop a lifelong learning system that enables islanders to reach their full potential. In summary, sir, Jersey is an enterprising island community, and if we are to remain prosperous, then it will be because of the strength of our community combined with our entrepreneurial spirit. Jersey's government will only be able to meet the challenges of carbon neutrality, achieving a stable population, and supporting the healthcare needs of an ageing population with a diverse, innovative, skilled, technologically advanced, sustainable, and enterprising private sector. In my view, it is the job of government to provide the right conditions to enable Jersey's companies and social enterprises to thrive. By doing so, I firmly believe that we can develop a socially and environmentally sustainable economy that is able to support all islanders throughout our lives and so enable us to pass Jersey on to future generations who will be able to build upon our success. This vision is dependent upon us dealing with today's economic challenges, most notably staff and skill shortages, decreasing productivity, a lack of suitable employment land, and the rising cost of living. Dealing with these challenges, whilst at the same time building the foundations of a truly sustainable long-term economic future, will be the dual focus of my work, should the Assembly appoint me to serve as Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. We now move to questions of up to 20 minutes. Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. The potential minister has described his medium and long-term vision as dependent upon dealing with today's economic challenges, most notably staff and skill shortage and decreasing productivity. What new actions will this minister take to deal with staff and skill shortages and to arrest the 20-year decline in productivity figures?
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one of the first things that we need to do is to look at the work permit system. I'm committed to working with the Home Affairs Minister, with HAWAG, which is the Housing and Work Action Group, to make sure that we have permits which are attractive to people to come here. It is generally accepted that 9 months is not working. We need to look at that, and that's something that I will do immediately.
Thank you. Supplementary.
And will that not immediately contradict his aim of dealing with the influx of workers to our economy, producing economic growth by increasing numbers, which he said he was against?
Sir, if the Deputy had actually listened to the speech I just made, you'll have heard me say that there are short-term pressing issues and there are medium and long-term more visionary issues which you want to achieve. We want to get to a point where Jersey's economy is not dependent on constant population growth. That's the medium to long-term vision that I want to try and achieve. But this is not simple, sir. Let nobody be under any illusion that decoupling economic growth from population growth is going to be an incredibly hard task. But it is a challenge that I am willing to rise to. In the short term, however, if the Deputy had been listening, he will have heard that we today, as we stand today, have an issue with staff shortages. We know this, and sir, we need to deal with that straight away, because there is no point cutting off our nose to spite our face. We want to decouple economic growth and population growth. We need an economy which survives to that point. And so today, sir, I'll be dealing with staff shortages, but in the long term, sir, I'll be seeking to take away that need for population growth from our economic growth. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Given the contribution made by private jets to carbon emissions, does the candidate agree that there is no place in Jersey for an aircraft registry?
Sir, the question of the aircraft registry is one that I was addressing before the election, sir, and it's one that I have committed to resolving by March 2023. It's interesting and quite understandable that the Deputy has linked the harm caused by aviation, in terms of environmental harm caused by aviation, to Jersey's economy. I, sir, am very interested in the possibility of us having a sustainable aviation industry. Can Jersey lead the way? Can Jersey attract businesses here that are focused on developing aircraft which do not pollute in the way that they currently do? That's a question that I'm asking the department to resolve by the beginning of next year, by March next year, sir. And so if the Deputy then asks me again, come April, I should be able to give him a more definite answer as to what we are doing with the aircraft registry.
Thank you. Comrade Tarver Trinity.
Thank you, sir. I'm really encouraged to hear the candidate's support for the agricultural industry and ensuring that we do everything we can to maintain our own food security. But with that in mind, would he see that there's any opportunity to break what I see as the harmful link between the major UK supermarkets, who are so dictatorial to our local agricultural industry, by saying that we won't pay you more than 9p a kilo for the carrots, otherwise we're going to bring them in from the UK, and that damage that is doing to our industry? So does he feel that there's any scope to address those issues? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and an incredibly pertinent question. The power of supermarkets to dictate the price paid to farmers is something that I find incredible. And I had a discussion about this recently where somebody quite rightly said supermarkets are amazing in the way that they centralise, give you one central place to get your food. That is in itself incredible. But the flip side is that they dictate prices which sometimes can be not just low, but below the cost of production, which is outrageous, sir. I will do everything I can, and that includes supporting farmers financially to ensure that they get the returns they need. How can I break the supermarket's grip on the market? I'm not sure that's something that I can do personally. But one of the things I also mentioned there was opening up trade links with France and Europe. This will provide greater competition, sir, and will enable us to access goods which are, or sell goods as well, sir, which do not depend on just the supermarkets in the UK. By widening our market, sir, we can reduce the impact of supermarkets when they price at ridiculous levels. Thank you, sir.
So just a quick supplementary. Obviously, we do have some protection for our dairy industry by not allowing importing of raw milk. So perhaps there is some scope to investigate that a bit further.
Thank you, sir. I'm always willing to investigate many areas. But of course, in this case, the issue might be the cost of living, which is the other downside to protection. But we do have law which enables us to address the potato, particularly the potato export market. And we've already actually been looking at that and talking with the exporters as to how they can use the existing law to increase the price of the potatoes selling to the UK. And we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Deputy. Conor Robertson-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Our fishing industry faces unprecedented competition from our French neighbours, not only who are fishing in our waters, but are receiving subsidies from their government. How would the Minister-elect propose to deal with that?
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm pleased to say to the Connotab that the marine economy framework launched just before the election, sir, creates different areas for support for the marine economy. We're going to be looking to create a marine economy development fund, a marine economy sustainability initiative scheme, as well as increasing the fishing vessel safety scheme, which provides support to enable fishing vessels to meet the safety requirements. So, sir, we are already looking at how we can support our marine economy, which is something we have not been doing financially for years, and that's something I'm committed to continuing.
Does the Minister propose to explore the export market in different ways, given that we are controlled at present by France? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. One of the really important pieces of work for the marine economy framework is developing new markets. It's absolutely an export industry. We saw during COVID how the island tried to help and protect fishermen by buying as much fish as they could locally, but we also need to sell to a wider market. We do sell to France, but also to Spain and Italy. Southern Europe is a great market for our shellfish, and we need to develop that. So that's something I'm really, really keen to do. So.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Tadia.
Merci, Monsieur. Si on me permettra de poser ma question en français dans la langue de Molière, parce que je sais que le député est également francophone. Est-ce que le député est de l'opinion qu'on devrait faire plus d'efforts et plus de liens économiques avec la France, la Normandie et la Bretagne, par exemple? Et qu'est-ce qu'il fera lui-même pour soutenir ces liens, pour les augmenter?
Merci pour la question. Oui, c'est vrai, je voudrais bien ouvrir les liens avec la France, la Normandie et la Bretagne. Je vais travailler avec le ministre des Relations extérieures pour faire ces choses comme ça. Et même maintenant, je parle avec le comité de jumelage de Saint-Laurent pour ouvrir les liens économiques avec Barneville-Carteret. Donc, à chaque étage de nos relations actuellement, nous pouvons ouvrir ces liens comme ça. Merci.
Could you give a summary of your response in English?
Of course, sir, absolutely.
It's appropriate for members.
I was just
who
saying
aren't
that
familiar.
I've committed to working with the External Relations Minister to open up links with France, particularly Brittany and Normandy, and that I'm already working, even at levels like with our twinning committee in St. Lawrence, to open up links with Barneville-Carteret, with which St. Lawrence has twinned. And so at all these levels, all the way from twinning, at the parish level, all the way through to the government level, we can open up these links with France.
So, can I thank the future minister for his response? Does he agree that it's important that we, in this assembly, remember we are a French-speaking assembly, and also that government remembers that we're not just a north-facing island, but that we have a continent and a country to the south and to the east? Let's make sure we get the directions correct. And that there's a whole wealth of opportunity there, not just economically, but culturally, and that we need to build on that for future generations.
Yeah, I'll stamp my feet to that, sir. I know it was a question, but it's one I wholeheartedly agree with the Deputy. And I'm really pleased he also mentioned culture and arts, because it's absolutely right. Economically, as well as culturally, there are so many opportunities between Jersey, St. Malo, Rennes. There are festivals which go on in Brittany and in Normandy. We should be parts of these festivals. I really, really want to work in these areas because it's the way that, you know, culture helps us make friends. It's very simple, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. Is the Deputy concerned about the reduction of visitor accommodation through the multiple closure of hotels over recent years, and how can it be addressed?
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, market forces have meant that various hotels have closed, and it is a concern. But I also agree that it's not just a question of visitor numbers, it is also a question of visitor spend, the value of each visitor to our economy. So if we can increase the amount that is being spent by visitors when they come here, that in itself will help us deal with the reduction of in bed numbers that we've seen. However, sir, I'll go back to my twinning mention earlier. One of the discussions I've been having with people in Normandy already is about hotels that might be interested in investing in Jersey, hotels that come from France. And so those are conversations that I want to continue because we can. There are so many hotels which would suit, or hotel chains, etc., that would suit our our offering here in Jersey. We need to look as many places as we can and invite people to see whether they want to invest in the island in that way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the response and supplementary. Given the reduction of visitors' accommodation, should the government investment in Visit Jersey be reviewed to ensure adequate return on investment?
Thank you, sir. Visit Jersey has done an amazing job, particularly through COVID and out of COVID, in marketing the island. But the Deputy touches on a really important point. When it comes to arm's length organisations, we need to constantly review their effectiveness and their value for money. So that is something I will certainly be doing. But I couldn't tell you at this moment whether it would be keeping funding the same, reducing or increasing. It depends on reviewing that value and seeing what that value delivers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Jean.
Thank you, sir. During the election campaign, the Deputy was talking about cutting red tape as part of invigorating and supporting business. Cutting red tape has been used in some instances by governments around the world to roll back environmental and sustainable standards, health safety standards and employees' rights. How will the Deputy ensure that the streamlining of bureaucracy to support small businesses will not weaken standards and in fact enhance them?
Thank you, sir. The Deputy asks a really important question, because too often the threat of cutting red tape is used by some to say, oh, you're just trying to remove protections. Absolutely not. We have really important protections in all areas of our economy, whether it's from employment to health and safety to product standards. They need to be maintained. But what needs to change is the way government interacts with these businesses. I've seen firsthand how difficult it can be just to get the most simple things done when you're trying to do business in Jersey. Not because the regulation is wrong, but the way we're implementing the bureaucracy around that regulation. Those are the things which are wrong, and those are the particular areas I would like to concentrate on.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy made reference to arm's length organisations that are in receipt of funding from the government. How will the Deputy ensure that those organisations are well governed?
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Another really important question. Arm's length organisations are entrusted by government to carry out certain tasks. They are entrusted in that way, and obviously it was a trend that occurred over the last 15 years or so, because they have an independence which enables them to be nimbler, move more quickly than government, and that's the right thing. Government's role then is twofold. One, it's to ensure governance, and that means constantly speaking to the boards of these arm's length organisations, which is something I was doing as Assistant Minister in those where I had delegated responsibility. But it's also to ensure they are strategically aligned with the overall strategy of government, policy of government. And so that means working with the Treasury and Resources Minister, it means working with other ministers and the ALOs themselves to ensure that there's strategic alignment to the work they do. So those two things, governance, for me, that's incredibly important. And it includes things like making sure that board members don't serve 12, 15 years on the same board. You need to refresh boards. You need to have diversity within boards as well. And those are things that I've championed in this Assembly, and I will continue to do so as a Minister. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for your answer. Some of those organisations deliver grants programmes on behalf of government. How does the Deputy intend to ensure that those grants programmes are well managed and that grants get given to the right people, and that there is an assurance that there is a process around how those grants are given and that government KPIs are met?
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. And the Deputy's right, there are a number of grants programmes. We have them through Art House Jersey is one, where they give grants to organisations to deliver cultural offerings in Jersey. Another one, very obviously, is the Technology Accelerator Fund, which has just been passed by this Assembly. So it is about understanding how they are doing this, seeing where the money goes and the returns on that money. It won't be possible in the first instance to see whether grants given by any one ALO to any one organisation is right on the surface. What you need to do is to see the delivery of the promises that were made to the ALO. Did that cultural offering take place? Did the company that was funded by the Technology Accelerator Fund, did it deliver what it was meant to deliver? So time tells, but the important thing from a minister's perspective is to keep reviewing and to keep asking the questions.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. A big problem for business is staff recruitment and retention. Businesses can't get staff because people can't afford housing, specifically private rentals. So does the Deputy support controls like banning above inflation rent increases?
Deputy.
Sir, I don't have any one particular medicine or to give to the issue of high rents, but I am committed to working with all fellow ministers to ensure that we intervene in the markets in the best way possible to make sure that rents in Jersey are affordable, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. In relation, say, to supply-side economics, so the level of low taxation and also capital investment incentives in the economy to try and procure greater levels of economic growth, do you think supply-side economics can actually generate sufficient levels of growth in the medium term?
Sir, growth is generated by activity, growth is generated by hard work, and growth is generated by innovation. Those, sir, are the ways that Jersey will ensure that we continue to maintain growth in our economy. As far as supply, sir, Jersey's supply-side economics has relied principally on the supply of people because we are a knowledge sector, sir, and principally service industry. That is the area that I believe, as I've talked about, we need to decouple this idea of economic growth and population growth. And so in that sense, the supply-side economics work? Well, when your supply is constantly people, and that's how you're growing, we need to change that. So is it working at the moment? It's causing us problems, that's for sure.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. I was going to ask this question of the Treasury Minister, but we ran out of time. The co-funded payroll support scheme and other business measures introduced during the pandemic provided a lifeline to businesses. Will the Minister agree to work to persuade the Treasury Minister and others on the Council of Ministers to introduce an appeals scheme, sir, for those businesses who might have fallen foul, shall we say, of the technical issues related to the auditing of the schemes? And the Treasury Minister can just simply nod if he agrees with that as well.
Thank you, sir. I was going to say I couldn't see whether the Treasury Minister was nodding or not from my position, but absolutely, there's no question. The co-funded payroll scheme was superb, and on behalf of the whole Assembly and Jersey's economy in the island, I'd like to thank Senator Farnham and all those, or Deputy Farnham, and all those who came up with the idea of the co-funded payroll scheme. It kept Jersey's businesses in operation, and it kept people paid throughout a period when it wasn't possible to work. But unfortunately, the kind of legacy of the scheme has been sullied by, in my view, the inappropriate kind of overzealousness of government in its bureaucratic aims, effectively. And so there's no question in my mind, we do need an appeal system. Personally, and I speak personally, not as a member of the Council of Ministers, personally, I just think we should stop asking people for their money back. It's that simple. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Scott. We can't hear you yet. I think you might be muted.
Sorry, sir. Will the Deputy be taking forward the Economic Council's New Perspectives report? And if so, how?
Thank you. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful, and I know Deputy Farnham, as previous Minister for Economic Development, is also grateful for the work of the Economic Council and their New Perspectives report. Sir, the report covers 5 principal areas, and everything it says makes sense in there. I believe that I've already talked about the ways in which we will develop a more sustainable, technologically enabled economy, sir. And there's no question in my mind, I'm committed to doing so.
Thank you. Thank you. That completes the period of questions for Deputy Morell, and accordingly he has been selected for appointment as Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Now move on to the selection of the Minister for the Environment. Deputy Moore, can we have your nomination?
Thank you, sir, and my nomination is for Deputy Renouf.
Thank you. Is the nomination seconded? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. I want to start by saying that I'm deeply honoured to be nominated for the role of Environment Minister. As anyone who knows me will tell you, the environment is a passion of mine. It has been for decades, so no ministerial brief could be closer to my heart. I want to talk first about why I believe I'm qualified for the role of Environment Minister, then about my vision for the role, and finally say a few words about a couple of specific areas of policy. First, in terms of expertise, I have a degree and PhD in geography, which bears witness to the depth and longevity of my interest in environmental matters. This passion carried through into my career, and in particular when I started making science documentaries at the BBC. For example, I was involved in almost all of BBC Television's programmes about climate change over a 20-year period, up to and including David Attenborough's recent Climate Change: The Facts. Since coming back to Jersey, I've given public talks on climate change, I've spoken in primary schools about the environment, and I've been a member of the Council of the National Trust. I love this island's natural beauty. I am who I am because of the time I spent exploring the island's coastline and countryside when I was growing up. Those experiences have helped shape my vision for an environmental agenda in Jersey. So what is my vision? I believe we should aim high. Jersey should be a beacon of how to make environmental protection work with a thriving economy, how to reduce carbon emissions in a socially just way, and how to make the environment a central part of a Better Lives agenda. As one voter said to me, if we can't do green in Jersey, then where can we? I believe that protecting the environment is as close to an uncontroversial ambition as you can get in Jersey politics. But what does it mean in practice? Sir, I believe that the environmental agenda gives us a huge opportunity to transform Jersey for the better. In fact, I see our environmental ambitions as like a green wave that can sweep through and invigorate every aspect of the island's economy, from tourism to farming to finance. Let's briefly consider the context. There are massive shifts underway in the global economy. For example, decarbonisation is going to be one of the great defining projects of the next 30 years. All around the world, business has bought into the net zero ambition. Excuse me. It's going to happen. Frankly, it's just a question of whether it's going to happen in time. But it's not just decarbonisation. We have to face the related issues of habitat loss, mass extinction, and overexploitation of the natural world. All of these issues are global in nature, but they also find their own particular expression here in Jersey. So we must play our part in pursuing an environmental agenda, not just because it is morally the right thing to do, although it is, but also because it is the right thing for our economy, our society, our people, the right thing for our island. So that green wave I mentioned just now, I think we should surf that wave and use its energy to drive improvements in every aspect of island life. Of course, part of the environmental agenda is about the simple things: protecting rare species and vulnerable habitats, improving access to the countryside, providing parks and green spaces in St Helier, and preventing ugliness in planning developments, as a recent UK government declaration put it. But it goes much deeper than that. Supporting the environment is also part of broader moves towards increased sustainability and resilience. The world is changing fast. This is an era of much greater insecurity. We need an island economy that is more resilient to outside shocks and agile enough to seize the eco moment. That means a reinvigorated farming sector that thrives, but does so with a significantly reduced need for chemical inputs. It means a hospitality industry that takes advantage of the massively growing market for ecotourism. And it means a finance industry that takes a lead, a global lead, in financing the energy transition, habitat restoration, and rewilding. There are, however, two dangers with surfing this green wave. We do not want to move so fast that we are out on a limb, ahead of mainstream technology or sacrificing living standards. But neither do we want to fall behind and miss the green wave. If we do, we'll lose the incredible economic opportunities that lie in front of us, and we'll fail in our mission to improve people's lives. Summing all of this up without resort to a somewhat tortuous surfing metaphor, let me put it like this. In my election campaign, I talked about being a sensible environmentalist. I stand by that. We need to be ambitious, but not recklessly ambitious. So let me talk specifically about climate change and our drive to carbon neutrality. For me, nothing exemplifies the opportunity of going green more than our carbon neutral ambitions, because almost everything we do to reduce our carbon emissions is also good for us. Take transport, for example, the single biggest contributor to our emissions. Encouraging active travel, walking and cycling, improves health outcomes, including mental health, which improves quality of life, reducing long-term health expenditure. Supporting public transport and multi-vehicle occupancy reduces congestion, which is a significant business cost, and also reduces pollution, further improving health outcomes. And shifting to electric or hydrogen-powered vehicles also means less pollution and healthier outcomes. I'm concentrating on these points because if there's one thing I've missed over the last few years, it's a sense of excitement about the opportunities in front of us. I want to reignite that sense of hope and possibility around our carbon neutral strategy so that people feel proud of our drive to carbon neutrality. So let me make one more brief point about the journey to carbon neutral. It's going to cost money. Now, at this stage, I remain agnostic on how we fund the transition. And maybe we can talk about some of those things in questions. But let us put this in context. The total cost is estimated at about £300 million. Spread that over 10 years and it's around £30 million a year, or 3% of government expenditure. It's a lot of money, but I believe it is doable, especially when you consider the long-term economic benefits. So let me turn to planning issues. Members will be aware that we have a bridging island plan in place that lasts for 3 years with a new island plan due by 2025. In my view, the bridging island plan was a far more substantial piece of work than the title bridging would suggest. It is also the case that the bridging island plan requires the development of further detailed policy work in areas such as the future of the reclamation site, a water strategy, coastal defences, and a marine spatial plan, to name but a few. One major reason to bring forward a new island plan would be to release new sites for development. That may still be necessary. However, anecdotally, it seems we have lost people over the last couple of years. Therefore, before we rezone more fields, I believe we need a new assessment of housing need, taking account of measures that could reduce the demand for new sites, such as bringing more empty homes onto the market, the potential for office conversions, and brownfield development. Taking all of this into account, my inclination at this stage would be to suggest extending the bridging island plan by another couple of years. I question whether there is much value in or appetite for the development of another full island plan in this Assembly's term of office, given that it would need to kick off right away in order to meet a 2025 delivery date. So, in conclusion, I would point out what must be obvious from what I have said so far. Delivering a planning and environmental programme depends on teamwork. Therefore, I aim to work closely with ministers in economic development, infrastructure, housing, and elsewhere in government to balance the competing demands on our environment and deliver our objectives. This must be a shared project. So, we are a small, crowded island. It is not surprising to me that almost every square metre is contested. We cannot satisfy everyone. What we can do is be open in consultation, transparent about the decision-making process, and honest about why certain choices are being made. These are responsibilities I embrace with conviction. So, working together and in tune with nature, we will get Jersey back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Now move to questions for 20 minutes, and the first question is from Debbie Sutton.
Thank you, sir. And once again, I'm hearing from ministers about intentions, but not about actions. And it says in the 5th paragraph here, during my campaign, the minister, potential minister says, I made it clear that I was standing on a platform of what I called sensible environmentalism. So the first question is, what might be seen as sensible to some may seem as madness to others? Where's his definition? He then goes on to say, there is overwhelming support in Jersey for a strong environmental agenda, including on climate change. So there's a strong environmental agenda versus a sensible agenda. And then he finally finishes up, and this is the pièce de résistance. In other words, we need to be ambitious and to talk with conviction about the environment. So the end result is we will talk tough about the environment. That's what it says. That's what the entire paragraph says, effectively. When the potential minister talks about being strong and talking tough, what does he actually mean, is the question.
Thank you, Deputy.
Sir, thank you. I find it not that hard to consider the possibility of being both strong and sensible in the same paragraph. And I think in terms of what it means in practice and how to pursue an environmental agenda in practice, I would say this. We have not yet had briefing papers from the civil service. We do not yet know the full issues that will face us. The very definition of sensible is that I will approach issues as they come before me, but I will do so in the sure knowledge that I support and the conviction that I hope I've expressed here today, that I support strong environmental measures and I will fight for the environment, but I will do so in a way that has respect for all sides of our community so that we try and bring everyone with us. I cannot be more specific than that.
Yes.
In short, I'm waiting to be tugged by my civil servant as to what I should do on any particular matter. Is that not the case?
Deputy?
Sir, I find that slightly offensive. Never in my career have I been seen as somebody who has been pushed around. I've led strong teams. I have been a strong individual in whatever roles I've done. The Deputy might even remember me as a strong individual at school in his classrooms. But, you know, I will be strong and I will stand up for what I believe in. It's what I've done throughout my life. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Talia.
Thank you, sir. I don't know if the surfing analogy is the right one, but I do wish the Minister good luck. I think that maybe your driving analogy is best, because I know when you go to a different country, it can sometimes take a while before you get used to driving on the other side of the road. The worst thing, of course, you can do is to drive in the middle of the road, and then you're definitely going to get hit, and there'll be some kind of accident. So with that in mind, he talked about the desire to build on brownfield sites. He's also talked about a socially just way forward. Does he accept that the current island plan, and it's been a long-standing policy, that glasshouse sites should not be developed for rich people to have a windfall, which certainly wouldn't be socially just, and that we must find another way, if only for food security, to try and make sure that we protect glasshouse sites, put them back into production, so that we can help with the cost of living and food security issues in Jersey.
So I'm pleased to see that I'm encouraging a development of metaphor as a method of communication in this assembly. In terms of the specific question to do with glasshouse sites, the Deputy will have noted that in my speech I talked about the need for a new assessment of housing need. And I think it is fundamentally important that before we take any more action to lose agricultural sites, that we know how much demand we have for new houses. We are anecdotally told that we have lost population over the last few years. I do not know if that is the case. The previous island plan, the bridging island plan, was based on a planning assumption of a population growth of 800 per year. If that is not the case, then that means that there is less requirement for rezoning of new fields, including glasshouse sites. We simply need to know the facts before we take any further decisions.
So supplementary, the reason I asked that question, and I think it's fundamental to the type of Environment Minister and planning minister he will be, is that his chief minister in the last assembly, in the last few months, stood on a platform of build, build, build. Let's build on as many greenfields as possible. Let's build on as many brown sites as possible. She wants to build on glasshouse sites so that rich people or potential people who own derelict land who have let it fall fallow for years and years can get a large windfall. Yet in his election campaign, but he's supporting this chief minister, he said that he didn't want to build, build, build. Certainly that's what he told the electorate in St. Brelard. So is there a cognitive dissonance in there? How will he resolve the tension at the very first moment between the chief minister's desire and his own words in the election campaign?
No, sir, I don't think there's much of a cognitive dissonance. I think that I've made clear that, in my view, before we take any further steps, we should take a cool look at what the actual housing demand is. I think with respect that you may be, the deputy, may be importuning motives and views to the Chief Minister designate that may go beyond what she has actually said. I have made my position clear. We will need to look at what the actual demand is. There may be cases where Greek glasshouse sites should be rezoned. There may be cases where glasshouse sites themselves can be restored, where other less valuable agricultural land owned by the same landowner could be rezoned. There are multiple options available, and I think we should look at all of them and consider very carefully the data before we make any further decisions.
Thank you. Conatarbus and Saviour.
Thank you, sir. Whilst I appreciate the candidate's green credentials, sir, from a practical point of view, we all know that fuel is absolutely going through the roof. And it goes without saying, if road fuel goes up, food and all essentials will go up too. Does the minister support the lowering of road fuels by a reduction in tax or some other method, sir? Thank you.
It's a very good question, sir. Let me say that I am reluctant to lower fuel tax for the following reason, that the fuel is going up primarily because of the problems with supplying fossil fuels. If we remove, and that is feeding through into a price signal, if we remove the financial signal that tells us that relying on fossil fuels is not in our best long-term interests, if we always remove that signal, then we are reducing the signal we need to send to people to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. Having said that, I do believe that in a situation of extreme stress, which we now found ourselves, it might be appropriate for a time-limited period to consider a reduction in fuel duty, time-limited, so long as the funds that come from fuel duty to the carbon neutral fund are protected. In other words, that any reduction is taken by the general revenue rather than by the carbon neutral fund.
Deputy.
I thank the Minister for that concise reply, sir. Following on from that, sir, and possibly a question from the previous Minister, but much has been said about the cost of food, which again is quite high. If supported by...
Does that relate to your first question?
Sorry, sir?
Your supplementary must relate to your first question.
Indeed, sir. Would the cost of fuels, etc., would the candidate support the local one? Would the candidate support? Sorry, threw me completely there. We do have lots of excellent companies providing local supermarkets, sir. But would the candidate support the importation of companies such as Lidl or Aldi to keep the cost of food down? Thanks, sir.
Well, it doesn't relate to the initial question, so I don't allow it. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The candidate spoke about being strong, so let's put that to the test. Will this candidate as minister be strong where previous ministers were weak when it comes to the enforcement of minimum health and safety standards in private rental accommodation? And as the Environmental Health Department will fall within his remit, will he, as a matter of urgency, bring back the regulations which have already been written and are ready to go to introduce a proper landlord licensing scheme?
Deputy.
So thank you for the question. I will want to consider this matter. Sir, I will want to consider this question in detail. My inclination at this stage is that I do support minimum standards in housing, and I do support some form of registration scheme, but I will want to consider further before making a final commitment.
Thank you, sir. Not a good start. Does the candidate accept that a registration scheme is nothing more than a measly compromise which leads to nothing more than data collection rather than the actual and real enforcement of those minimum health and safety standards, which were shown in a recent ITV news report for the failure they are, for the fact that they don't provide security with tenants and people are living in squalid quality accommodation? Will he do a little bit better than he has done in saying he'll think about it and instead take a strong approach now and commit to real action and not this measly compromise that's been suggested on registration, which is a pure distraction?
Deputy?
Sir, I will commit to making a very, very I will make a very strong commitment to ensuring that standards in housing are raised in this, under this minister. As I've said already, I will want to investigate what the best method of doing that is. I share, however, I would like to say very clearly, I share the Deputy's very strong disquiet at the appalling state of some housing in this, in this island. And I do not think strong enough action has been taken up until now. And I do think stronger action needs to be taken. But with the greatest of respect, I will want to get to know the brief properly before I make a final commitment. I'm sorry if that feels inadequate. I will be led by data, and I will be very happy also to meet with the Deputy to discuss the matter further.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. It feels very strange not having my jacket on, slightly naked. So, anyway, so may I ask the Minister, thank you, can I ask the Minister, does he agree with the adoption of the Paris Agreement for Jersey with its 2050 target as the date for carbon neutrality? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, I do. I would also, though, before I sit down again, like to pay tribute to Deputy Ward for his work in pushing this agenda. When I returned to this island, I was very proud to come back to an island that had had a climate emergency and was taking this forward. And I would like to place on record my appreciation for the work that the Deputy has done in pushing that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supplementary, sir? Yes. Does the Minister see any risks with the adoption of the agreement on carbon neutrality that may produce for us as a jurisdiction, namely being lost in larger targets, which mean that our target can really be almost, well, nothing? Thank you, sir.
Deputy.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Clarify.
I'm happy to take a clarification.
Yes.
The Paris Agreement we've signed up to is a Paris Agreement for the UK, and we therefore become part of the UK for that agreement for 2050. That's a much larger jurisdiction. How is there not a risk that our leading of carbon neutrality can be lost in that larger jurisdiction?
Yes, Deputy.
Well, I hadn't thought of that possibility, to be perfectly honest, but I would certainly not support any watering down in terms of keeping Jersey should be a separate jurisdiction for the purposes of our carbon neutral ambitions.
Thank you. Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. I warmly welcome the Deputy's comments, given his strong environmental credentials, that he's going to be a sensible environmentalist. So I've been trying to be a sensible economist for the past 8 years, sir, so I wish him all the very best. The question I have, sir, is given the island's urgent need for new housing, how is he going to balance that need with his strong environmental credentials? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
So I think I've already made some allusions to this in that I think we have to work out exactly what our housing need is. Our Bridging Island plan is based on the need to build, based on the assumption that we would have a net inward migration, a net population gain of 800 per year. We are being told, anecdotally at least, that this is, if anything, and we are currently losing people rather than gaining people. That figure of 800 people per year in population growth was then translated into a need for 800 houses a year. And that is, in fact, what the Bridging Island plan aims to deliver. It seems to me unlikely, given where we are, that we are currently needing more houses than was suggested in the Bridging Island plan. Therefore, let us find out exactly what the situation is in terms of housing need, and then decide whether we need to come into conflict over the delivery of new sites for housing. So,
Thank you. David Hegera.
Thank you, sir. My question is fairly straightforward. Would the Deputy have voted to build in the countryside as a number of members did so during the Bridging Island plan? Thank you.
Deputy.
So I'm on record as wanting to protect fields from development wherever possible. I think the last Assembly was faced with a very tricky balancing act between the need, at that time evidenced need for new sites for housing and the desire to save green fields. I think at some point something had to give during that. I cannot say exactly which fields I would have voted for and which ones I wouldn't have voted for, but I think something had to give in that Assembly.
Thank you. Conor Tarb of Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, I don't have the physique to be a good surfer, but I do share the Minister's enthusiasm for this green wave and in planning terms to his aim to get rid of ugliness. Being parish-centric, could I ask that there is an opportunity to remove an eyesore in one of my bays in my parish, which is a hotel, redundant hotel, reminiscent of something in more like Beirut. But it will deliver only one dwelling, but it will provide an enormous restoration of landscape character. And could he give me an indication of what his views are on that style of development? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
So I'm going to avoid commenting on that particular development with the Conor Tarb's permission, in that at some point I may be required to make some judgments or in my role. But in general, I am in favour of two things here. Sometimes they may come into conflict. I am in favour of developments at on the coastline that preserve access to the countryside. And I am alarmed at the trend for very large houses in general to take dominant positions in the Coastal National Park in particular. However, I do think that in all of these cases, they have to be considered not just in terms of that overall principle, but also in terms of what they are replacing, and therefore require individual judgment. All I can do is give you my general sense of the principles which I follow, and then the need to follow that through in individual circumstances. Sorry.
Conor Tarb of Helier.
Thank you, sir. Can I start by congratulating the candidate for his election, his nomination, and indeed his speech. And I'm pleased to endorse what he said about active travel and the need for homes to be built on brownfield sites. But does his sensible approach to the environment include making allowance for the fact that many people, particularly in urban areas, are going to need vehicles? They may be low or zero emission vehicles, but they're going to continue to need them, and they're going to need somewhere to park them. And would he undertake to have a close look at the current parking standards, which seem to me to discriminate against residents and businesses in St Helier and urban areas, while making it a really carte blanche for parking elsewhere in the island?
Deputy.
I could just answer yes, but just to put a little bit more flesh on it, I do think that the current car parking guidelines for developments in town feel instinctively to me to be a little low. I will qualify that in the sense that we do know we need to drive towards using, we need to have fewer, we need to make fewer car journeys, particularly ones driven by petrol and diesel. But I feel like there is an opportunity here to make the planning guidance more sensitive to the very particular type of developments going underway. So I'm particularly talking about new developments here. Developments with larger units will need more parking, crudely. Developments with 1- and 2-bedroom flats maybe need less. I think we should possibly be more sensitive in our judgments of these issues.
That concludes the period for asking questions. I should explain to those members who indicated their wish to speak as soon as Deputy Renouf sat down, and are probably feeling frustrated because no new members got a chance to put their questions, that the old timers, if I can use that expression in relation to members who were here in the last assembly, often indicate their wish to speak during the course of the speech. So that's why you weren't reached, simply because other members indicated their wish to ask a question during the speech.
Sir, may I just respectfully, sir, note that the first two questions in the last session, as good as they were, took nearly 5 minutes to answer. So members really do need to be brief so many other members can have a chance, sir.
Yes, I endorse that observation. As there are no other nominations, Deputy Renouf has been selected for appointment as Minister for the Environment. We now move on to the Assembly appointing a new Minister for External Relations and Financial Services. Deputy Moore, would you like to make a nomination?
Thank you, sir. I nominate Deputy Joseph.
Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. I want to start by thanking the voters of St Saviour who placed their trust in me, which has led, following Deputy Moore's election as Chief Minister Designate, to now be nominated for the role of External Relations and, at least in the short term, Financial Services Minister. Having been a member of this Assembly from 1999 to 2018, members will perhaps know that I have some experience which started over 23 years ago as a St Helier deputy. Within 18 months of that, I, however, accompanied the Home Affairs President to sign an agreement with the Republic of Poland, which saw, in advance of the rest of the European community, Polish workers coming to Jersey. This early experience perhaps identifies that I have some experience and or an established reputation in dealing with external matters. So as I look around at the diversity, quality and determination of what is a now newly elected Assembly, I detect a determination to succeed with a welcome, fresh approach. An approach in discharging the role as a minister will be one working in collaboration with both this Assembly and the Council of Ministers. I hope that we can together turn the tide of confidence in our island. And I say confidence because it is inevitably the case that internal confidence, which arises by the decisions of this Assembly and the Council of Ministers in tackling major issues, in whether or not Jersey is fiscally prudent, does have an impact on the external view of Jersey. The tone from our Chief Minister designate is one that these issues should be tackled in an open, accountable and collaborative approach. And I would, sir, be proud to be part of that team. Like many other members, I was perhaps not alone in having some frustration with the activities of the last few years. Having said that, I must say that all was not wrong. It is difficult to discharge public office, and one area that I feel was well handled was the work of the External Affairs Department, and in particular the work of the now formerly Senator Gorst, Deputy Gorst, in his oversight of external relations. I wish to publicly recognise him and thank him for laying strong foundations for Jersey in the area of external relations. In particular, the last 4 years have been a significant time of challenge, navigating Brexit, the global pandemic, challenging fisheries issues, COP26, and of course in the last few months, the invasion by the President of the Russian Federation into Ukraine. There has been a backdrop also of somewhat, as we've seen in the last few days, turmoil in the politics of the United Kingdom. Deputy Gorst and indeed Deputy Labby, with the support of the External Affairs team, have handled this period of turbulence with sound information, research, quiet diplomacy, and good and determined effort and time and effort that has been well spent. I would be honoured to have the opportunity of continuing the work of Deputy Gorst. And in accepting the nomination of the Chief Minister-designate, whilst nobody has any evidence of the future, there are, it is said, known knowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns. No member that took their oath of office 2 weeks ago will be under any illusion that the next 4 years are likely to be a time of immense challenge and change, both domestically and internationally. Brexit and the issues facing us are not yet finished. The incoming new UK Prime Minister is going to face a significant and unresolved set of issues in relation to the Northern Ireland border issue and the Northern Irish Protocol. This is further challenged by significant political change within the Conservative Party in the UK, and of course we've also seen changes in the administration of our other nearest neighbour, France, in the last 2 months. The ongoing issues, as the now Minister for, or shortly I hope, Minister of the Environment has said, the issues of climate change have had to be issues that have been needing to be dealt with. And at the same time, the extraordinary and unprecedented increase in commodity prices, which have continued and are likely to continue, as markets indicate, as a result of the ongoing situation in Ukraine. This also is important to point out that such international events do sometimes shine a spotlight on Jersey in a disproportionate way, and particular in relation to the United Kingdom and international community's efforts in relation to sanctions in order to try and deal with what is a very difficult situation. These identification of issues does show that issues come that are unknowns to the External Relations Department. The Chief Minister-designate has, however, made one thing clear, that she wishes to transfer financial services to the Treasury. So I'm being nominated for one role, but with a clear expectation that half of the role, or if that's half the word, half of the role will move. So I believe this is a sensible move. I fully support it, and I commit to working with both the Chief Minister and Treasury Minister to effect the changes necessary to transfer responsibility for financial services. The resultant External Relations Department will perhaps underline the important difference of the Minister for External Relations to perhaps other ministerial portfolios, and that is that its work is very much in a role of being a collaborative player on the Council of Ministers, working with ministers as it relates to their non-domestic relationships. The External Relations Minister has to, with the Chief Minister, publish a statement of common policy on external relations. And that policy has been published. I understand it has remained relatively unchanged since the policy that was written and led by former Senator Balash, now Deputy Balash, in his work with external relations, which very much were at the cutting edge of creating an external relations department. The document that is set out the broad principles of our international relations. It sets out the importance to protect our constitution, promoting Jersey's international identity, and also having regard to the best economic interests of Jersey, something which my hopefully future colleague, the External Relations Minister, ably dealt with. There is also a need an identification to promote Jersey's national and cultural identity abroad. The report lists how those objectives should be followed through, moreover, in a set of priorities. The new Council will no doubt want to revisit these priorities, and I look forward to working with the Council on considering what those priorities should be. Of course, as the common policy is ultimately a matter for the States Assembly, it will be important to listen to the views of the yet unelected and unselected scrutiny panel, but of course members more widely. Whilst I have outlined that there are challenges in international relations, I believe also firmly that there are huge opportunities. Opportunities to strengthen our bond, particularly with the Jersey community that lives outside of the island. Whilst I have been somewhat hesitant sometimes to use the word world class, we're not a country, but we don't have the largesse of other countries with a foreign service. There are undoubted opportunities to lead in, by way of example, by linking our diaspora together with the current issues that Jersey has. I want to make it a mission of external relations to build and enhance our relationship with the literally thousands of members of the Jersey diaspora across the world. This work was started in the London office a number of years ago, and if elected, I would wish to undertake a more detailed analysis of where this diaspora live, what their skills are, and what we can do to enhance them. I also look forward to working with the Economic Development Minister and ministerial colleagues such as the Education Minister in considering what we can do to advance cultural identity and cultural betterment for Jersey outside of the Assembly. So I am very pleased that, subject to this Assembly's support, the role of International Development Minister will be continued by Deputy Labby in her important role in international development work. This is an important area, a crucial area, and I commend to the Assembly and to her the excellent work of the Island Identity Report, which has not yet, as I understand it, been formally adopted by the Council of Ministers. And I look forward to working with Deputy Labby, if elected, on that joint endeavour. Clearly, working with Guernsey is important, and as always, we need to build strong relationships with the United Kingdom, which is our key partner. I was a member of this Assembly who attended upon numerous party conferences in the UK, and I think Deputy Mezek, in his remarks in securing the position of Chief Minister, was alluding to the work that we both did at the Labour Party conference, and that highlights the importance of Jersey remaining politically neutral in terms of whatever government of the United Kingdom has. So having studied European business and economics in London, Frankfurt and Paris, I hope that I do have an understanding of international relations. Moreover, the importance of what Jersey has, in Jersey being a collaborative jurisdiction, and I look forward to answering members' questions.
Thank you, Deputy. We now begin up to 20 minutes of questions. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Will the candidate pledge to break with the approach that was adopted by his predecessors and refrain from involving himself in actions which constitute positive PR for the representatives of some of the worst dictatorships on the planet?
So I recognise I've not been a member of this Assembly for the last 4 years, and so the Deputy will forgive me if I don't, I'm not familiar with the particular issues that he deals with. So I would say that it is important to recognise that Jersey is a Crown dependency, and as such the responsibilities for international affairs fall within the United Kingdom. That does not, however, mean that we don't make our voice heard, but in the appropriate way in order to enhance that. And diplomacy is often talking about the people you don't agree with.
Supplementary, sir. Of course, I entirely agree with all of that. We can't choose other countries' governments for them, and you have to engage whether you like it or not. But to appear in photographs smiling and shaking hands with hands that are frankly covered in blood, and to put out press releases extolling the virtues of some of these people is surely a step too far, and we can engage in that diplomacy in ways that don't involve glorifying people who don't deserve to be glorified. They deserve to be demonised.
So I recall that it was when I was a backbencher in 2019 or 2017 that I asked the then External Relations Minister of his knowledge and the equipmentedness of Jersey to adopt the Magnitsky sanctions, which were a new form of sanctions brought forward in order to identify perpetrators of criminal and socially disruptive activity, to use a polite word. So I think the international community is well aware of the ways that you can sanction individuals and sanction different governments, but that has to be done on evidence. And Jersey simply cannot, if I may politely say, simply doesn't have the resources to identify the extent to which some other people. Jersey will respect international sanctions, but we're not a foreign country in that sense, and we need to be closely aligned with the United Kingdom's foreign policy, which we continue to do, but that does not mean we don't talk.
Thank you, Deputy Joe.
Thank you, sir. Jersey has a significant impact beyond its borders, mainly through the finance industry. Global responsibilities must be taken seriously and as a whole island strategy. What key multilateral processes will the Deputy prioritise to ensure Jersey develops into a true sustainable finance jurisdiction where there is zero tolerance for greenwashing?
So in my opening remarks, I made it very clear that the External Relations Minister is the colleague, I don't want to use the word servant of other ministers, but certainly that is the role in which the external ministers play. The Deputy raises an important issue about the island's reputation in relation to financial services. I note the comments that she makes, and I look forward to working with the Treasury Minister with his work on financial services in order to ensure that the reputation of Jersey is enhanced, because there are many opportunities for a finance industry to do quite the opposite of greenwashing, but actually to make advances in terms of innovative technology.
Yes.
Thank you. So just to confirm, you will be advised to go to the key multilateral processes. You won't have that decision-making process yourself.
So unless I have misunderstood the role, the Minister for External Relations is working with against us a criteria of common strategic policy for external relations, and does not have and simply does not just go off by themselves. But in saying that, I do not in any way wish to set aside the issues that the Deputy raises. There are important issues about the way that Jersey projects itself, and indeed in the past there has been so many positive contributions, namely with the work that's been done in relation to the positive economic contribution of Jersey to the United Kingdom and European Union. But I take the point that the Deputy makes, and will bear that in mind in discussions about the importance of international relations and what we do.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I congratulate the Minister on his return to government and on his use of the word diaspora. Thank you. Given the cross-range nature of his role, I asked this question as I would of others, but I didn't get the chance. What would the Minister do to end the bullying culture that has been identified in the States as an organisation? And what personal qualities do you bring to this within your ministry and in your multifaceted role? Thank you, sir.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I think that I would start by saying that the tone from the Chief Minister Designate is going to be a very important one. And that is a Chief Minister who is going to lead from the front and have absolutely zero tolerance to any form of inappropriate behaviour, which I say that I have experienced in perhaps in not identifying members will be aware of being somebody that is from a minority community or whatever it is. One is subjected to all sorts of inappropriate activity and behaviour. And indeed, I lament, sir, some of the comments that I've seen online over the weekend. Deputy Ward is not in any way linking that. He is basically asking me about my own conduct. And all I would say, sir, is that I was very proud for every department that I led throughout the nearly 20 years that I was in the Assembly, of the support that I received from staff at the Chief Officer level and below. I was always encouraged by the farewell that I was given, which was a generous and warm one, and one in which a minister conducted his affairs in a collaborative and joined-up way, recognising the important work of junior staff, which has sometimes not always happened.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes.
I asked the Minister, what will he do distinctly to give members of the workforce a voice and a space to express their concerns, and how will he address those very real concerns, particularly for those at the on the front row, if you like, of our services, who sometimes get the worst treatment from managers who are under stress? Thank you, sir.
So, as important as that question undoubtedly is, and I think wanted to be asked by many members. So the External Relations Minister is not responsible. They're not the Chief Minister, and that matter is perhaps best addressed by the Chief Minister, except to say that as a minister working with departments, you can only do so with the support and work of your invaluable staff and related agencies. And that I've always had a proud reputation for, I think, of working with colleagues and not having any truck with any sense of bullying with junior staff or indeed staff below the role of Chief Officer.
Thank you. Conor St Helier.
Thank you, sir. Before Brexit, this island enjoyed a close relationship with France. What steps is the the Minister designate going to do to build bridges with our French neighbours? I don't mean, of course, the literal bridge that has been suggested, but metaphorically to restore the happy interchange of tourists, of students, and particularly for local people who've been accustomed in the past to enjoy time in France, who now find that circumscribed by Brexit. Thank you, sir.
There is no doubt at all that Brexit, which of course our island community had no say in, has caused all sorts of issues in relation to travelling with France and indeed French trade in particular in relation to fisheries. I can't tell the Constable, sir, what the prescription is going to be for the problem. We first need to diagnose it, but it is, I would say, sir, by dialogue, by going and speaking with representatives across the political spectrum of France, both at the regional level and at the national level, and indeed with the ambassadorial service that there is in London. It is by understanding, by respect and by discussion that I hope that we can deal with some of the difficult issues. There will be some issues that we will need to talk to the UK about, particularly, as I understand it, in relation to immigration and day trippers from France. But I haven't got solutions, but I will find them.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure the Minister-designate's ability to speak French, which he doesn't need to show off in this assembly, will be very useful. Would he also spare a thought for local boat owners who in the past have been able just to drop down to Chaussee for lunch if their boats go fast enough? I have to declare mine would take 2 days to get down there. But will he do something for boat owners as well who've really lost that freedom to pop across to France whenever they chose? Thank you, sir.
So I must admit I once entered the office of the former greffier of the States, and I saw a picture, a map of the Kingdom of Rollo, which included the Crown dependencies as they now are Jersey, with ownership of Chaussee. Now, I'm not suggesting at all, sir, that we attempt to revisit history. We can't change the past, but we can change the present. And if it is the will of the Economic Development Minister who has responsibility for these issues, if this is a prioritised issue that needs to be dealt with, then he can rest assured that that will be dealt with by the External Relations Department appropriately and robustly. And I thank the Constable for his comments about my French. I would remind him and the Assembly that we were successful in getting Jersey off the French blacklist in financial services, which would have lost in excess of around 2,000 jobs, I think. So our ability for diplomacy is there.
Thank you. Deputy Farnham. Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. In his opening speech, the Deputy spoke of the importance of rest of the world engagement that the External Relations Minister has to lead. But closer to home, sir, what does he see as the most important part of his role that will work to improve the lives of islanders and protect our livelihoods, sir, and the economy? So I'm asking, sir, not sort of for an all of the above answer, but can he identify anything that will specifically ensure that we can improve the lives of islanders through his role, sir? Thank you.
Deputy.
So any minister that stands, or potential minister that stands in this assembly and pretends that they have a magic wand or a silver bullet, I think is, and I don't think the deputy is asking me to do that. I would say that I think it is important for Jersey's international identity for, as I said in my remarks, confidence to be restored domestically. The fact that there has been some disquiet, which is normal and healthy in a democracy in the last difficult 2 or 3 years, I think does give the impression, particularly perhaps the fiscal position of Jersey, does give the impression of some questions being raised in Jersey. I've been accustomed over many years, sir, to dealing with many outside commentators that said that the finance industry would end, we were going to be caught in one or other international agreement. The experience that I have is that we can deal with the international pressures. We do, I'm not going to use the word well-regulated and all the rest of it, but we can represent ourselves, whether it's fisheries or finance or digital, well, but it is really important for the outward impression to be given, but not impression, the reality of a confident island at ease with itself and confident in the future, and thinking the best days have yet to come and they're not relegated to the pages of temps passés.
Thank you. Connétable St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. And external relations is an important role, particularly at this time of global uncertainty. And the Deputy, in his opening remarks, spoke about his first being elected in 1999 and serving until 2018. And I am sure he will agree with me, sir, that during his political career, it could be described as having been colourful. My question to the Deputy is serious, sir, and it is this. During his various ministerial roles, what has he learned about what to not do as a minister? Thank you, sir.
So I'm grateful for the Constable's thoughtful and incisive question. When one has discharged political responsibility at the highest level in turbulent times, one may get a picture in people's mind of one's character, and that is often identified in a caricature. And the caricature of the then Senator Ozef, or Treasury Minister, or Economic Development Minister dealing with low-value consignment relief was perhaps a difficult one, and one which 4 years' absence from the Assembly has caused me to reflect upon greatly. And I return to this Assembly with undoubtedly not talcum powder, but a few more grey hairs, and therefore age moves on, and the way that you conduct yourself changes in relation to the experience you've had. And looking outside from within, I can see why some of that character might have been appropriated to me. However, at the same time, I wouldn't undo some of the work that was necessary in difficult times. But there is a way of doing it, and the way that the External Relations Minister has to conduct himself or herself is one of collaboration, of simply sticking to the brief and concentrating on the areas that other ministers are asking you to do. And that's a very different role than perhaps the roles that I fulfilled behalf. And like many of the people that I met on the doorstep in St Saviour, a number of them said, goodness me, you really are human. You are actually a real person, and the caricature was unrecognisable for the person they saw on the doorstep. And I'm grateful for the support of the people of St Saviour in making that positive choice. The caricature is not perhaps something I recognise, but I take the point that the Constable makes.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the Deputy if, given the size of our island and the scope of our trading capacity, is there any value in pursuing our own trade agreements with other jurisdictions? And if so, which trade agreements will he be pursuing first?
So it would be very easy after the last question to respond to the Deputy's excellent question, is that the fact that I know what the trade agreements are. The short answer is I am not entirely sure, because my work previously in this Assembly has been very much directed towards financial services. To the extent that fisheries matter, that clearly matters in relation to bilateral relations with France. But it is certainly going to be, I suspect, in the area of digital and the furtherance of our financial services industry as we move towards a more digitally enabled services sector, which is going to be punching above its weight. I don't like that word, but certainly we need to identify the barriers to entry for our digital and technology areas, and certainly those would be the subject of discussion where we need trade agreements to do so. Our constitutional position is what it is. We are not members of the European Union, but I do accept that there is an opportunity for bilateral trade treaties where our economic interests lie. And that will, of course, be very much governed by the work of the Economic Development Minister and Treasury Minister.
Obviously, as a small jurisdiction, the size of our team, as well as their experience, may well differ from larger jurisdictions. What measures would the Deputy take to ensure that our team is able to compete on an equal footing with those of other larger jurisdictions?
The Better Together hashtag has been used in the context of this new Assembly's approach. And I would say that the better together of working in partnership with the United Kingdom, being British Jersey, does have an enormous strength to it. It is the good relations that we have with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and their network of embassies around the world that mean that Jersey, a jurisdiction which is micro in compared to that of other nations, can be multiplied many times by the use of the huge network of high commissions and embassies around the world with the attendant other British opportunities. And so that's where I would say to the Deputy that we can have a multiplier effect by reminding ourselves that we are British Jersey, and that is an important brand, whether or not it is potatoes or whether it is financial services.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Also, I just wanted to ask a question in relation to trade agreements and also the importance in terms of recognising what the exchange rates are and also the volatility of exchange rates within the international system.
I think the Deputy is rightly alluding to the challenges of doing a trade with a jurisdiction which doesn't have the same interest, the exchange rate as us. And there is a lot of talk, of which I am an enthusiastic, long-standing bystander and supporter of bilateral links with France. But that, of course, does come with an exchange rate risk, which was the thing I had to deal with on my first day as Treasury Minister when I found out the incinerator hadn't been hedged.
Thank you. Deputy St Mary. Sorry, Conetaba St Mary.
Thank you, sir. As former chair of the scrutiny panel overseeing economic and international affairs in the last government, I endorse the comments made by the candidate as to the good work carried out by the then Minister for External Relations, which included very regular briefings and briefings, I suspect, before those to the Council of Ministers on matters prevalent. So would the candidate please confirm that he will deal with the scrutiny panel with the same alacrity as his predecessor? Thanks.
So that gives me the opportunity of also recognising the important work of scrutiny, which I didn't specifically commend the now Constable for his work, because I've read many of those interactions and they were positive, important, and I hope to have the same relationship with scrutiny going forward. It was an excellent piece of work and an excellent ongoing 4 years of work in very difficult times. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. The period for questions has come to an end. And accordingly, I can confirm that Deputy Joseph has been selected for appointment as Minister for External Relations and Financial Services. Now, we now move to the next ministerial appointment. Deputy Moore, do you wish to take something out of turn? Is that right?
Thank you, sir. I would ask the Assembly now to consider the Minister for Home Affairs, and I would like to nominate Deputy Miles, please, sir.
Thank you. Is that nomination seconded? Are there any other nominations for Minister for Home Affairs? Deputy Miles.
Thank you. Sir, I would like to start by thanking the parishioners of St Brelard for giving me the opportunity to be part of this Assembly. It will have not escaped members' notice that I am new to this Assembly and can therefore be considered an inexperienced politician. I think I'll enjoy that label and the benefits it brings while it lasts. That experience cannot, however, be said to include my background in the Home Affairs Services or working on justice and home affairs policy. I spent over 30 years working for Jersey's public service in those areas, including as a policy director for the Chief Minister Designate. I have the practical experience, the strategic knowledge, and the relevant training and qualifications. I am new to this Assembly, but I'm ready for the challenge to being Home Affairs Minister. Sir, my career has included time working for what is now the Integrated Customs and Immigration Service, for the Probation and Aftercare Service, the States of Jersey Police, and the former Department for Community and Constitutional Affairs. I've worked in service delivery, service development, strategic leadership, and planning roles. I've attended and passed the Senior Police National Assessment Centre's Strategic Command course, which, in a previous career, would have enabled my appointment to a Chief Officer role. In my policy role, I led the development of the criminal procedure law and the sexual offences law, modernising the landscape of criminal justice in Jersey. I have a PhD in social sciences and a strong academic interest and appreciation of our criminal justice system, right through from the parish hall inquiry system to the courts, and particularly in promoting informal justice, rehabilitation, and social work with offenders. Jersey is one of the safest places in the world, but this is not a position that has been achieved through luck and not one that we should take for granted. If elected, sir, I will pursue community-based policies and those that are rooted in a comprehensive understanding of our island and what works best for Jersey. I will provide political leadership to the department and maintain and enhance Jersey's reputation as a safe and fair community. So, as part of my preparations for today, I have met the Director General for Justice and Home Affairs and many of the service heads. Together, they run an excellent operation. They are good at what they do, and they have my full support. It's been said many times in recent years, and I make no apology for saying it again. We owe so much to our police force, our customs and immigration officers, our fire and rescue teams, the ambulance service, the health and safety executive, the superintendent registrar, and all of those who ably and conscientiously support their operations. I will always fight their corner and be their voice in government and in this assembly on policy, for legislation, and for funding. I do have some immediate priorities for services if I'm elected to the role. I'll be seeking to ensure that as much resource as possible is aimed towards the front line across all services. At customs, for example, I don't want highly trained and effective customs officers sitting behind their desks dealing with GST queries. I want them at the ports and the post office working on frontline operations. We need to secure more resource for the fire and rescue service. They have been cut and cut and cut, and this has reduced their capacity to improve and promote fire safety among businesses and within the community. As Minister, I will argue for increased funding so that we can properly resource our crews and maintain fire safety within the community. I consider this a risk to our island which needs addressing. The same applies, sir, to the ambulance service. I see no greater priority than the ability to be able to respond to frontline emergency calls, and I will work with my ministerial colleagues to address the current funding shortfalls. Whilst I will support collaboration and joint working across the services, there will be no mergers of services for any period that I serve as Minister. Police, customs, fire and ambulance have their distinct roles. They of course work together, but I will not pursue pointless reorganisations aimed solely at cost-cutting which do not actually improve service delivery and often seek to replicate failed UK models. This includes, sir, and this may or may not be of interest, our relationship with the Jersey Probation and Aftercare Service. I want to work very closely with probation. I want the prison to continue working closely with probation to promote rehabilitation and reduce reoffending across our community. I will take my ex officio seat on the probation board and I will actively engage and set out my policy agenda. But I will not seek to bring probation into the Home Affairs Department. It works well as a department of the Royal Court, and again, I want that service to be able to get on and deliver for our community, as it has done year after year, and not be worried about who wants to bring them into which ministerial portfolio. Sir, I'm also aware of some of the ongoing capital projects which we need to see through. The new police firearms range, which is long overdue, the Army and Sea Cadets headquarters, which the previous Assembly committed to, and of course to the prison redevelopment.
We also need to secure sites for the Sexual Assault Referral Centre and the new Fire and Ambulance headquarters. Current accommodation for both of those is not fit for purpose. On policy, sir, my focus will be early intervention, working with partners and making sure we're rooted in the community. We need to minimise the harm caused by crime, antisocial behaviour and substance misuse. As an immediate priority then, that means reinstating community safety programmes such as Building a Safer Society and Prison Me No Way. In St Brelard, voters raised with me their concerns about increases in disturbances across the parish, and we're hearing that across the island. I'm very careful to not point fingers, but it doesn't surprise me that a problem from years ago, which was being well managed, has now started to emerge again following the removal of 2 key early intervention mechanisms. Our work with partners will necessarily include the parishes, the Honorary Police and the Youth Service, and we will commit to working with the third sector and private sector partners, indeed across the community, to bring our relationships back to where they were a few years ago and to develop them further. I will continue the work of my predecessors to support victims, witnesses, and those who are affected by domestic abuse. I'm committed to ensuring that Jersey complies with the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Girls, known as the Istanbul Convention. We will work towards a society that respects everyone and where we all feel safe wherever we are and whenever that is. We're a small island, and I believe that this is a wholly achievable objective, but we're not there yet. Sir, the Home Affairs portfolio is a broad and exciting one. In my remarks today, I haven't covered the importance of us revitalising our commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant, or the need to work with the parishes and on ensuring we might meet the higher standards of safety and modern best practice in our firearms licensing procedures. The Minister also has responsibility for the marriage and the divorce law, a rather neat equation. I understand that work has already started on legislative changes, and I will continue that work, particularly ideas around the no-fault divorce. I look forward to working with Scrutiny and across the community to make our island even safer and a better place for everyone. So I hope this sets out my vision, my priorities and my focus. I ask for members to support my nomination, and I look forward to taking questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. The first question for Deputy Miles is from Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Back on track, as they say. Does the Minister designate support the increased use of facial recognition software and the use of tasers in Jersey, particularly with respect to human rights connotations?
Thank you for the question. I think I'll take to answer first the second part of the question, and that is the use of tasers. The Assembly has already agreed that tasers can be used in Jersey. My own opinion is that they are a less lethal option, and I think the safeguards that are in place are sufficient for their use. The second area around facial recognition software is really interesting. We have a regime of CCTV, which is aimed at protecting the public in Jersey. And again, there must be legislation underpinning the use and strict procedures and guidelines around that use. It is not for me so much about the use of facial recognition software as the storage and dissemination of the product of that facial recognition.
Supplementary? Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir, and may I congratulate the Deputy, sir, on her nomination. And I say, sir, that one of the biggest issues we are facing over here in relation to the economy is the availability of staff, especially seasonal staff. So we have adopted the 9-month work permit policy in line, I believe, with the UK in relation to Brexit, sir, and the fallout from that, and the fact that we are part of the CTA, so we are following those guidelines. But they don't work, sir. They don't work for our businesses. Will the Deputy undertake to review that as a matter of urgency? We did it, sir. The previous Minister provided extended contracts for construction workers. Will she undertake, sir, to take a close look at how we might adapt the work permit scheme to allow more time for seasonal workers to remain in Jersey, so without, of course, impacting on our long-term population goals? And also, sir, as a sub-question to that, we'll also explore the possibility, and this might be more difficult, sir, of allowing French visitors to come to the island, sir, on their ID cards as opposed to having a passport. Thank you.
Deputy.
I thank the Deputy for his question, and both of those are really important areas. I think firstly we must stress that the issue over the work permits is for foreign nationals. And since Brexit, that really means anybody who isn't British or Irish coming to Jersey requires a work permit. And there are two elements to this. The element of a domestic agreement is how long we might, from a population perspective, allow people to work in the island. Historically, we have always issued the 9-month permits with the 3-month gap in order that people don't build up their residential qualification. The second element to it is evidently the immigration and the nationality side of things. So if you are a foreign national, you are required to apply for a visa. In order to be issued with a visa, you have to have a work permit. Because of our links with the UK and our links with the Nationality Act, we are bound by the rules that exist in the United Kingdom. The process is out of Jersey's control. We will issue work permits, but people who are applying for a visa need to turn up themselves at the visa application centre. That visa application is then put through to a department at the Home Office, who then pass that on to Jersey. It's my understanding from the scrutiny panel work that there has been some negotiation about having Jersey consider the visa applications for the island directly, and that might speed them up. The other issue that is problematic is in the past we have been seen to need to align with the United Kingdom. So when we've moved from the 9-month permit for foreign nationals to a 12-month permit, that has raised eyebrows in the UK because it is not the way that they do it in the UK. In fact, in the UK, I think their permits are actually for 6 months. So there would need to be some sensitive negotiation with the Home Office in order to work out what we can do as a local solution, given the stress to our economy and given the necessity to remove any barriers to people coming to the island to work for us. The subject of the second question regarding the identity cards, again, is an interesting one and quite a tricky one. It's just culturally, the French have carte d'identité, they don't tend to have passports. Since Brexit, we are now considered to be a third country, and therefore any countries within the common travel area require a passport to be stamped on entry and stamped on arrival. From my discussions with the head of service at Customs and Immigration, I know there has been some discussion about relaxing this rule for day trippers. And indeed, I know that we have managed to get it for school children. So school children coming on a day trip can use their carte d'identité. At the moment, everybody else has to have a passport. And there have been some ideas about how we might ensure people on day tripper tickets are stamped in and stamped out, but I think administratively that might be quite complex. We have to look at our obligations under the common travel area. From an economic perspective, coming for day trips on an identity card, yes, would be the ideal solution. But what we don't want to do is find out that actually the United Kingdom put in a customs or a passport control, because we have been seen to be the weak link, if you like, in the boundary of the common travel area.
Brief supplementary, if I may, sir.
Yes.
And I thank the Deputy for those answers. So I think the Deputy might need to sit down in turn.
Yes. Do you want to ask a question?
Yes, sir, I do. I think some deft diplomacy will be required by the External Relations Minister and the Home Affairs Minister here. And I would urge the Deputy to look at breaking the mould. I know we've always done things in a certain way, but there is an urgent need here to put Jersey first and make some changes, and I hope the External Relations Minister and the Home Affairs Minister can work towards that with their counterparts in Europe and the UK. Thank you. And I'd just like to undertake, sir, to pursue that as a matter of importance.
Yes, can I reassure the Deputy that we do take this very seriously, and there will be serious discussions about enabling people to visit Jersey, not only for tourism purposes, but also that they may become economically active in our community in a way that happens quickly and effectively.
Thank you. Deputy Jern.
Thank you, sir. What concrete initiatives will you support and prioritise to reduce gender-based violence?
Deputy.
Thank you. Jersey has signed up to the Istanbul Convention, which is the convention that is focused on violence against women and girls. Part of that work not only concerns gender-based violence, but also other sorts of violence, such as honour-based violence. In the last Assembly, Conatab Shenton-Stone successfully lodged a proposition to gain funding to set up a task force around women's safety. And I'm pleased to say that I will be supporting that work, that there are already measures in place to take that work forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Deputy Tellier.
Thanks, sir. My question on carte d'identité has been asked. First of all, can I congratulate the impending Minister on her appointment, but also on a very good result in the St Bullard campaign. I think she connected very well with the electorate there, clearly. The question, therefore, relates to the constituency, and it relates to surveillance and video cameras. It seems to me that the general policy up until now is that St Helier is covered by a network of CCTV, but apart from perhaps schools and other areas, it's not generally the policy that outlying areas, conurbations, are covered by CCTV. Does she think this is something which could be looked into, and how would she do that?
I am reluctant to turn the island into an island that is permanently surveilled by CCTV cameras. Where we have CCTV cameras, I feel that they need to be put there for a specific purpose, and usually that purpose is about safety. We are a very safe island, and at the same time as saying that, there is no doubt from a police perspective that the availability of CCTV evidence is a very useful tool in tackling crime and disorder. So what I would say is that there would have to be a very careful balance of how we implemented CCTV, how we used it, based on issues around privacy and human rights.
And more specifically, would she look to have a consultation at the earliest possible opportunity about, one, getting possibly CCTV around Don Farm, at the new skate park in particular, which I believe the police would like, and also to talk to other outlying communities who are represented by deputies and constables in this Assembly about how proportionate CCTV usage might be used in those areas?
Deputy.
Yes, most certainly I would undertake to have a consultation, but I refer to my previous answer. Just because we have a facility that is going to be significantly used by young people doesn't mean to say that we constantly need to surveil those young people. Young people have an entitlement to privacy in the same ways as any other citizen. And I'm also concerned that by having CCTV spring up left, right and centre, it's another way of actually demonising young people who are actually exercising their freedom of choice to take part in actually what is a very constructive activity.
Thank you, Deputy. Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Does the candidate agree that when it comes to the decriminalisation of cannabis, the writing is on the wall and it is inevitable? And if she does agree with that, would she further agree that therefore every prosecution for possession of small amounts for personal use that happens in the meantime is a miscarriage of justice?
Deputy.
Thank you for that question. As a former customs officer, a former senior leader in the police, and as a criminologist, I have a bit of a cognitive dissonance around the decriminalisation of cannabis. As part of the preparation for my role as deputy, I spent a very interesting couple of hours with End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey, and I'm very interested in what they have to say. There is no doubt that there is a groundswell of opinion towards, let's not say decriminalisation or legalisation, but perhaps a more tolerant approach to that. What I would say is that over the last 4 years, since we saw the demise of the Building a Safer Society strategy, we also saw the demise of our substance misuse strategy. So what I would say is that I would like any issues around cannabis to be taken in the context of other substances. There are other substances that some people might consider more harmful than cannabis, for example, alcohol, for example, over-the-counter medication. So I wouldn't be looking at this as a single issue. I would be looking to roll it in to the work that we need to do moving forward, as I mentioned in my speech, around early intervention, around a substance misuse or a substance use strategy.
Thank you. She spoke about cognitive dissonance and also spoke not overtly in favour of decriminalisation of cannabis, but a more tolerant approach. But surely if something is criminalised, you are legally intolerant of it. And would she not agree that actually it is inevitable that the direction of travel is towards the decriminalisation of cannabis? And given the growing body of evidence that its criminalisation is harmful and leads to worse outcomes for those who involve themselves with that sort of thing, that this could be something that could be pursued early on in the context of that wider substance use strategy, but that this should be contained in that so that we stop prosecuting what is overwhelmingly young people and overwhelmingly working class people for something that really most people don't regard as something that should be a crime.
Thank you. I don't agree that it is inevitable that we would be decriminalising cannabis, and I refer to my previous answer that this is something that has to be carefully considered within the bounds of the appropriate strategy, and that appropriate strategy would be a substance abuse or a substance use strategy.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. The last government made some quite considerable changes to the departmental structure under the Minister-designate's remit. I would like to ask her if she thinks that departmental structure is the best one that is suited to her ministerial portfolio.
Deputy.
Thank you for the question. Yes, there is absolutely no doubt that the target operating model, if we can still call it that, that was in place in 2018 is not in place now. What I think I need to say is that we need to be very careful before we reorganise what has been put in place. Whilst things might look good on paper and may look like they are fit for purpose on paper, we have what has been seen over the last 4 years is that is not the case. I'm aware that there is a uniform services review in train. I am not sure what the driver for that uniform services review was, but there seems to have been a desire to genericise all the services under the portfolio of Home Affairs, and I'm certainly not convinced that that is the best way forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Part of that organisational restructure was the development of a combined control room to take emergency services calls. Does the Minister-designate believe that a combined control room is the most appropriate way of taking those calls?
Deputy.
Once again, the combined control room came out of a review of blue light services, and there seems to have been an assumption that because a vehicle has a blue light on it, it has to be administered by a single control room. I am aware that there have been some difficulties establishing the combined control room. We need to take into account that every profession within Home Affairs has a unique culture, has a unique set of guidelines, has a unique set of operating procedures. We are a very small island, and therefore we have very small numbers of professionals working in each of those departments. And what might look sensible on paper clearly hasn't translated into delivering the best service to the public. So I would be prepared to look again at the combined control room, particularly before funding is allocated to it, to commit to a final combined model.
Thank you, Deputy. Conataba St Lawrence.
Oh, I wasn't expecting to be called yet, sir. I was very heartened by the Deputy's words when she spoke earlier, and really look forward to her delivering as Home Affairs Minister. So my first question went out the window, sir, because she advised us that she's not going to amalgamate the services. So my next question was, the former Home Affairs Minister committed to a review of the firearms law. That was not undertaken. So I'd like to ask the Minister-designate what her view is on the current firearms law, which is, of course, now 20 years old.
Thank you for the question. As I said in my opening remarks, I was Policy Director to the Chief Minister-designate, and I worked closely with the Constable of St Lawrence, who at that time had responsibility for firearms within her portfolio. The firearms Jersey law is old, and there are elements of it that are not fit for purpose, particularly in current times. My focus would be on the safety of firearms, carefully controlling who has access to them, how they are stored, how they are used. So I think, yes, there is, although it isn't an immediate priority, yes, within the 4 years, I would want to have a review of the firearms Jersey law.
Thank you, Deputy.
Supplementary, please, sir. Thank you. And the Deputy spoke earlier. She referred to procedures regarding firearms licensing. Will she elaborate on that for us, please, sir?
So at the moment, members will know that it's actually the Constable of each parish that is responsible for the issue of firearms licences. Although the States of Jersey Police are the department that administer the register of firearms. And currently, that means that there are 12 different methods I don't know if methods is the right word, but there's 12 different people who are involved in the licensing of fireworks. If that works from a safety perspective, and the island can be assured that every person who is applying for firearms and who holds a firearm is treated in a similar way, then I wouldn't be looking at any change to those processes and procedures.
Thank you. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir, and I'll be quick. Will the Deputy commit to the retention and replacement of the 2 inshore rescue craft operated by Jersey Fire and Rescue Service that form a vital part of our keeping populations safe on our beaches?
Deputy.
Going to be a very quick answer because I've only got 8 seconds, but yes, certainly. As I alluded to in my speech, the fire service have suffered a number of cuts, and I think it is important that we consider that area.
Thank you, Deputy. And I can confirm Deputy Miles has been selected for appointment as Minister for Home Affairs.
May I propose the adjournment, please, sir?
Yes, is that seconded? Any member to speak on the adjournment? No? State stands adjourned until 2:15.